All righty. All right, just give another couple seconds.
Can you make it 1 minute, Mr. Gates, please?
I can.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gates, whenever you're ready, I'm ready as well.
All righty. All right, I'd like to call the May 10th Scituate School Committee meeting back to order at 6:07 via roll call vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Lindblom?
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
And Gates is yes. So we're back into public session at 6:07. Thank you to everyone in attendance. Looks like we have 79 tonight. We're just returning from executive session, so I'd like to read our usual disclaimers. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, Town of Scituate public meetings shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded and posted following the meeting. It's also being streamed on Facebook Live. Public comment will be available via Zoom, though chat functionality will be turned off. And community members can also email me, pgates@cit.org, with their comments. Before we enter into the agenda, which will be to celebrate student learning, I'd just like to make a brief comment. And I do hope that my internet connection remains at 100% while I do this. My vice chair, Mr. Long, will take over for some reason. My connection fails. So again, I'd like to make a quick statement. In light of recent events at the Gates Middle School, the school committee felt it appropriate to make a brief comment. The Scituate Public Schools have a commitment to maintaining an educational environment and workplace where bigotry and intolerance, including discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, housing status, or disability are not tolerated, and where any form of intimidation, threat, coercion, and/or harassment that insults the dignity of others and interferes with their freedom to learn or work is unacceptable. The school committee established 3 goals this past fall. Goal number 2, the Scituate School Committee commits to creating a safe and inclusive environment for all students to learn, which will allow them to reach their fullest potential. The committee supports the efforts of our administration and staff to create physically and culturally inviting learning environments that are paramount to our district. The Scituate School Committee commits to fostering systemic changes within our schools by approving policies and funding to ensure staff and students are equipped with the tools and resources for culturally competent teaching and learning. The school committee fully supports all efforts of our current administration. Specifically, as it relates to our stated goal above, this is most clearly evident in the hiring of our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Mr. Jamil Adams, who is with us tonight. Welcome, Mr. Adams. Additionally, on October 5th, 2020, the school committee adopted an anti-racism resolution. Quote, "We commit to supporting justice for victims of hate within our schools and consequences for behavior that contradict expectations. We also must create opportunities for growth that will lead to constructive change as our commitment to educating the children of Scituate." Unquote. Complementing these efforts is a desire to be transparent with relevant events, both good and bad, throughout the district. Though transparency is a desire, it is also important to realize that when we have situations similar to recent events, there is a process to identify all of the facts. This process can take time. We ask that the community trust in this process and respect that the district leadership team has the experience, tools, and support to appropriately work through any and all issues. It is our sincere belief that our schools and community can overcome the recent challenges and continue to make progress toward meeting our goal of creating a safe and inclusive environment for all students and staff. Thank you. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Principal Reardon from the WAMPATUCK Elementary School to celebrate student learning.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. I'm going to just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Perfect.
Thank you for that statement, and also for giving us the opportunity to celebrate the learning community at WAMPATUCK this evening. I am going to be the presenter, the sole presenter tonight, but by no means did I do this alone. It took a great team of people to put together this celebration, and I just want to take a moment and start by acknowledging them. So first, I need to say thank you to Lynn Flannery, our literacy specialist, and Carol Sousa, our reading specialist, who really were sort of the brains and the backbone behind this whole celebration. They kind of came up with the idea, they worked through all the logistics, they did all the messaging to the families and to the teachers, and they really put together a great celebration in March that we're going to talk about tonight. I also want to thank Sue Egan, who helped us with all the technology, with the books that were being read, and just made sure that everything was accessible to all of our students and our staff and the WAMPATUCK families. And then I also want to thank Megan Gregory and Rachel Rosado. Megan's our curriculum coordinator, and Rachel is our library paraprofessional, and they were awesome in just engaging in great conversation about the books that we chose to be part of our March Literacy Madness. Okay, it's not going. Oh, there we go. Oh. So although the celebration is going to focus on our March Literacy Madness Tournament of Books, it really began with our school improvement plan, which we developed back in the fall, and our Pillar 2, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, focused on deepening our understanding of our students' background and identities and their individual strengths and challenges so that we could use that information to inform revisions of our policy and practices. And as many people know, if you've been a part of an elementary school, March is Read Across America and a celebration of learning. And over the years, that has typically taken place in March because that's when Dr. Seuss's birthday is. And a lot of the sort of foundation of Read Across America has been on celebrating Dr. Seuss and his contributions to literacy. So we asked ourselves, how can we reimagine our Read Across America in a way to support our diversity, equity, and inclusion pillar? And we had also begun some of this work back in the fall when we were continuing to weed out our WAMPATUCK library. We've weeded about 400 books out of that library this year, and we've brought in about 250 more. And the books that we brought in really focused on diverse topics and diverse authors. So in sort of thinking about all these great new books we had in our library and how to celebrate literacy in the month of March, we came up with our March Literacy Madness, Celebrating Differences with a School-Wide Tournament of Books. Okay. So the goals for the month was to celebrate WAMPATUCK's community of readers, share stories with our families, enjoy the new library books, and also to have fun. And that was the second bullet there, sharing with our families. We really wanted to make this a community of readers, reaching out to all our families, not just in school with the students in school, but to bring all of the families into the celebration. So we started off with 16 books, and 16 may seem like a big number, but when you're talking about hundreds of books to choose from, this, I think, was one of our biggest tasks, was how to narrow down the Sweet 16 that would start in the tournament. And so when you have a literacy specialist and a reading specialist and a curriculum coordinator and a library paraprofessional and a principal who is definitely a book nerd, trying to determine which 16 books to start with, it took a lot of discussion, and we all came with our own ideas on which books needed to be part of this tournament. I would say we were still swapping books out right up until the very end, right before we started the tournament. But these were the 16 we started with, and all of these books are part of our library. So how it worked, each day for the first 16 days of March, one book was released each day. And the book was recorded, it was read and recorded, and it was pushed out to teachers, staff, and families. And all of it was accessible through Google Classroom. We encouraged families to have book discussions, to read the books together and listen to them together and talk about the books. We encouraged our students and our staff in school to talk about the books. And our expectation was that the books would be read and listened to at home. However, many teachers, I would say probably almost all teachers in the building, shared the books, the recordings, and even read the books in class, which really went above and beyond our expectations. So it became this whole sort of buzz all month long about what was the next book being read and what do people think of it. So once all 16 books were read, then our first school-wide vote took place, and we narrowed the books down to the grade 8. And then all the books had been read at that point, but those grade 8 were revisited and listened to again and talked about again. And then we had our next school-wide vote, and the field was narrowed down to the final 4. And again, we had more book discussions. We revisited those books again. And then we had another school-wide vote, which narrowed it down to the terrific 2. Once we had the 2 finalists, then Lynn and Carol brought in students, took about 30 or 35 students, and had them record themselves on their opinion, which one of the final 2 should win and why, and what made it their favorite. Those recordings were pushed out to the whole school to listen to, and there was a lot of sharing about opinions about which one should win. And then the final vote took place during a live school-wide celebration where we tallied the votes live. So this was the reading schedule, and I'm going to go through and just read the books and who read them, because I really like to celebrate everybody who took place and agreed to read a book. And it wasn't just a WAMPATUCK celebration, but we also had district-wide people that shared in the celebration with us. So the first book, 6 Dots, The Story of Young Louis Braille, was read by myself. The Sandwich Swap was read by our grade 3 student, Parker Sullivan. Pablo's Tree was read by our WAMPATUCK library paraprofessional, Rachel Rosado. The Day You Begin was read by the author herself, Jacqueline Woodson. Read a Crayon Story was read by our school nurse, Lauren Bennett. Stella Brings the Family was read by our school psychologist, Deb Edgren. Just Ask was read by our PE teacher, Rob Green. Sophia Valdez, Future Prez, was read by the author herself, Andrea Beatty. The Girl with a Mind for Math was read by our METCO director, Michelle Crawford. Watch Me was read by our 3rd grade student, Duffy Ward. The Proudest Blue was read by our adjustment counselor, Paulette Marino. The Name Jar was read by Lynn Flannery, our literacy specialist. Mixed, A Colorful Story was read by our ECC teacher, Emily Norman. Fry Bread was read by the author himself, Kevin Noble Mallard. The Other Side was read by our grade 5 student, Olivia Ravello. And The Last Stop on Market Street was read by our superintendent, Mr. Burkhead. So this is how it was set up. We had, so these were the Sweet 16. They were paired up, as you can see in the brackets here. and then they were voted on. Each pair was voted on to narrow it down to the grade 8. Then we voted again for the final 4, and then for the terrific 2, and then for the final. This is a great picture of the bulletin board that we had set up in our lobby that kids passed every day. And once the voting started, the books were moved along the brackets so kids could see the winners. And you can see in the picture there, we have 2 speakers. Every day in March, we played music while kids arrived in the morning, and we played music while they were dismissed in the afternoon. So the grade 8, these were the 8 books that made it past the first round. Then these were the final 4 that made it past the second round. And finally, these were the terrific 2, the sandwich swap and mixed a colorful story. So they competed, these 2 books competed for the championship. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's just like, I can't get it to stay there. Okay, so the madness conclusion. So for the final vote, we did a live vote. We created a Google Meet, and this is also where Sue Egan came in. She was just great in helping us navigate this technology. So we created a Google Meet. All classrooms logged into the Google Meet on March 30th at 2:30. And we did a live vote in the lobby. I sort of looked back at all of the books and did a highlight of all of them and kind of recapped all of our voting. And then we did some interviews. So first I interviewed Lynn and Carol, and they just talked to the whole school about how they came up with the idea, how we vetted all the books, and some of the highlights of the celebration throughout the month. You can see the camera there that Sue set up for us. The next one are, these are the 3 student readers waiting to be interviewed, Olivia, Duffy, and Parker. This is myself interviewing Olivia Ravello, who talked about which book she thought should be the winner. And then she also talked about her experience of reading The Other Side. And then this is Parker Sullivan. He read The Sandwich Swap, and he talked about the excitement of the book that he read making it to the final 2. And then he gave his opinion on which one he thought should win. This is Duffy Ward, who was also a reader, and he's walking in looking at the display of the winner. And then this is Teddy McNabb. So, you know, just like any great teacher, partway through we had to pivot and make a couple little changes, because as I told you, when the students arrived in the morning, there was music playing, and when they left in the afternoon, there was music playing. And first grader Teddy came in every single day dancing like you've never seen before. And he just like raised the spirit of our school that whole month. And so we just thought it just made sense that Teddy should get the March Madness Spirit Award. And that's him receiving it. Complete surprise, he was not expecting it. And so he also talked to the school about his excitement over the madness. And then Heather Allen, our math specialist, she helped us tally the votes. We did live, and you can see our final tally there. And then the winner was Mix a Colorful Story. So one of the things, back in the fall, Superintendent Burkhead brought in a DEI specialist, Dr. Khalees Warnham. And the very first day that she met with the leadership team, one of the things she said that is just stuck in my mind, and I think about quite a bit, is that every child should see themselves in the books and lessons we put in front of them every day. And when I think about what we accomplished in the month of March and continue to accomplish at WAMPATUCK, is thinking about every one of our students and making sure that they can see themselves reflected in the books and the lessons we put in front of them. And I think the 16 books that we highlighted in our madness, our tournament of books rather, I think and I hope to believe that every child at WAMPATUCK was able to see themselves or a friend or a peer or a neighbor in at least one of those books. So that was our Celebrating Differences with a school-wide tournament of books.
That was great. Thanks very much, Principal Reardon. The outcome of that is obvious, but I just want to applaud you and your staff for coming up with an alternative and different way to look at celebrating differences. As we stated tonight, and as we stated several times, this idea of diversity, equity, inclusion can be completed in a variety of different ways, and I think that this shows one creative way to at least make a small stride towards accomplishing that. So thank you for doing that. Any comments from the committee?
I just want to say what fun the whole school must have had. That must have been awesome.
It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it did look like a lot of fun. I was like waiting with anticipation for that last, slide of who won. And I wrote down, well, in the beginning, I looked, tried to look at the titles of the books, the Sweet 16, and just if I had to guess, what each story was about, I wrote down that the kids get to see their life, their family, their like you said, it's representative of who they are, and how nice for them to be able to see that and know that the whole school is learning about that too. So it was really nice.
Thank you.
Yes, I would also agree with what Ms. Lindblom just said, and also Principal Riordan, just to even drive that point home further. I think especially in this community, it's really important that our children see children who do not look like them doing all these amazing things, and kind of get outside of ourselves a little bit, in addition to having students learning about different cultures in the classroom. But I think it's great that the connection gets made at home too, with reading at home with children is so important, just to bring that kind of full circle connection. So that was a really great way to showcase that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Principal Reardon. Good stuff. We love to see what's going on in the schools and the classrooms. So thanks for that presentation. All right, moving forward on the agenda, we have our student reports. I'm not sure which students we have, but we have a combination of Johnny Kinsley, Celia Reese, and Rosie Tersha. If you are ready, you may go.
Mr. Gates, I do not see any of them. If they're there, they'll need to raise their hand.
Yes. Perhaps none are here. I don't think they're here. All right. We will have to wait until our next meeting to get our highly anticipated update from our students. We'll move forward to our leadership report. I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Burkhead. Mr. Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Just trying to unmute here. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. So tonight, Mr. Adams, our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and I would like to review the incident that happened at the Gates Middle School to start the report off, continue our focus on transparency and honesty with our community, while at the same time maintaining the integrity of all our students as the investigation is ongoing. We are investigating a situation involving a slide deck containing inappropriate content that was collaboratively produced by Gates Middle School students. This slide deck names individual students and staff members, and also includes comments about race, ethnicity, gender, identity, sexual orientation, and religion. It also includes hypersexualized content and photographs of members of our school community. Upon finding out about this, we immediately consulted with our team, with the Scituate school resource officer, our local police, and our attorneys who specialize in these type of incidents. In his first week on the job, Mr. Adams was put to the test. He's been working daily with Principal Beatty and Assistant Principal Lesniak. As we navigate this investigation, we also connect daily as a team to ensure strong internal communication while providing support and maintaining communication with all of our students, staff, and families. It's of our highest priority. Students involved with the creation of this content will be treated fairly and pending the outcome of the investigation held accountable. Work to repair harm resulting from their actions will take place as well. There is no confirmation of malice or intent to harm. However, we must appropriately address and disrupt these actions. I want to make it crystal clear, and we put this in our statement, that we love all of our students, and any outcomes are based in love, inclusion, and trust. And we appreciate everyone's understanding of this and patience with our process. When incidents like this occur, we are reminded of the significance of our ongoing efforts to create and maintain an environment where each member of our community is respected and valued for their individuality. Ms. Reardon just gave a great example of her work there. Mr. Gates, Chairman Gates, in your opening remarks, you also shared a statement with passion and conviction based on what we believe in as a school district and school community. I want to give credit to the amazing work being done by Mr. Beatty and Ms. Lesniak. They are committed to conduct a thorough and fair investigation, and together with Mr. Adams and the Gates community, are working closely with the staff, students, and other important stakeholders to create opportunities for healing. Please anticipate being informed of developments as we engage in our next steps for our families and community, as we work to repair and nurture our unity and support our Gates and wider community. So upon completion of our investigation and what we learn, we always strive to improve. So I know we sent out a statement. We also will send out a follow-up just summarizing what we've learned and what we can do better as a district to unify all of our family members. Our focus this year has been on transparency as we continue to build trust in our district. When a situation of this magnitude occurs, we felt it important that our entire school community know the necessary facts. This lends to why do we report this to the entire community and not just the Gates family. This particular situation impacts many individuals, and word typically gets out and rumors fly. When this happens, misinformation is spread and potential damage is done. We wanted to make sure the community knew the truth from the source. Finally, I want to emphasize that this incident continues to be under investigation, and that when complete, we will share with our community what pertain to what we've learned from this experience and steps we can take to learn to improve as a district, as I mentioned before. And finally, this experience also solidifies and validates our commitment to focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion as a district and a community. I want to now turn it over with the newest addition to our team and Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Mr. Jamil Adams.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to thank you for making time to be here this evening and allow me to be present in my second meeting. The first meeting, folks were saying hello and welcome, and now who knew we'd be in this space within a week, and this is the beginning of my second week. But it's all love, we'll be fine. Also want to say, Tracy, that is an incredible endeavor that you had going on. The book tournament, you know, that's a lot, right? We need to top that a little bit more. That's fantastic, you know. And so the situation, understand, folks, we will together be all right. I need to affirm that for everyone. And the reason why I feel that way is because of the outpouring of support and love that was present before this and now during it. Understand that there are folks that continuously and constantly email me, and some folks have my phone number, text me, and folks have just a reason yesterday to stop by to just express nothing but support and love for not only the message that came from Bill and myself, but for how we're addressing it and our level of transparency. I want to affirm that there's been care and efficiency executed by Ryan and Sam in doing this work and making sure that there's no question to that. And at the same time, that safety remains tantamount to everything that we're doing. And that, again, is being based in love, inclusion, and trust. The other piece is that the community, when this happens, we need to make sure that we affirm where we stand and what we are about. And that has been going not only by the statement that was read by the chair of this board, but also in our statement and other accompanying statements that have gone out. I need to share with folks that over this past weekend, myself and Cheryl Matthews, who I imagine some folks know, were working together through text messages and things like that to put together a plan that actually engages the community. It's a 3-step process at this point. And the first step, many of you, I hope, received it today, where folks are invited to a Chalk the Walk tomorrow at Gates Middle School from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And folks will receive some chalk, and they'll get some affirmations, some positive affirmations that can be done to chalk the walk, different pathways leading up to the school. That'll be tomorrow. Then the next phase will be the sharing of an image. The actual image is a supportive message of love, inclusion, and trust for Gates Middle School. But this is part of a larger campaign that'll happen in the fall. But if I'm able to share my screen, am I able to do that? Let's see. I am. Okay, I can show that for folks that you can see what that looks like. This is that image right here. Where it says we, heart, then that's the Scituate blue, love, inclusion, and trust right there in the middle with the heart and the flame as well within the heart itself, and then Gates Middle School. Folks will receive that. And then you'll be able to produce it digitally or print it out. And folks will be able to put that inside of their windows, in their cars, on their doors, what have you. And then this will become a symbol that actually will carry not only throughout our homes and the rest of the community, but in probably places of business as well. And finally, there'll be a encouragement for folks to send letters of love to Gates Middle School as well. And so there's a 3-stage phase, 3 phases of engagement with the community. Now, while this is happening, also myself and Ryan and Sam began the introduction of how we will connect with faculty, how we'll connect with students as well, to have spaces where these conversations can take place. We also need spaces for community where this can take place as well. So I just want to assure folks that we are all in and all together and moving forward in a great way. And again, always we, never me. And so I can pause there unless there are more questions or any questions to that effect or comments on the image.
First of all, I'll just comment as the chair, Superintendent Burkhead. Mr. Adams, should I call you Mr. Adams or Jamil, or what do you prefer?
Hi, exalted Miss Naj. Jamil. This is Jamil.
Jamil.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. This is a difficult situation for everyone involved. And as I stated in the opening comments, we have full trust, confidence, and faith that you guys are the right people to handle this job, and we're thankful to have both of you on board. I'm sorry, Jamil, that your first day, you were greeted with this potential situation, but we're happy to have you. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Any committee members that would like to make some comments?
I'll say one real quick, Pete.
Sure, Mr. Hayes.
I want to thank Bill, Superintendent, for your comments, and Jamil, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you, and welcome to Scituate from me personally, and I hope to be able to introduce myself to you tomorrow or Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? That walk the walk.
No, Chalk the Walk is tomorrow, 3 to 6.
Oh, it's tomorrow. All right. Well, I hope it'll be tomorrow then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, and I wanted to share, I said the last name wrong because I get Emily Matthews in my head because we just met, but it's actually Cheryl Rydell. Sorry about that.
All right. Any other comments by the school committee? All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may, Ms. Merlini.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks Jamil and Bill and everybody for all their hard work on this. And of course, Ryan and Sam. It's a tough time, obviously, for our community. So I guess I know that it's private and that they're minors and that it's investigating and being investigated and all that. I guess, what will you guys be putting out advice maybe or resources or something for families on how to talk to our own children about these kinds of things? I think it's hard as a parent to, you know, kind of not knowing details, not know which, you know, particular subject matters to address in reference to this particular issue. But I guess I'm just thinking of my own children and having a 6th grader, and then my 4th grader, and then young ones too. You know, I guess where we can kind of all be in this together on the home front, I guess, is where I'm coming from with some recommendations or advice.
Thank you, Ms. Brendaline. I guess I'll take a stab at it and then turn it over to Mr. Adams and then Mr. Beatty if he wants to jump in, because we have talked about this. You know, our whole focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, has been ongoing all year, and this, you know, this incident certainly we can learn from, and that's what we continue to do to get better and improve. So part of what we intend on sharing out afterwards is like, what do we learn from this? How can we better support, you know, our families, our students, so that this doesn't happen again, that this isn't acceptable, that, you know, that we're working pre-K through 12 to, you know, eradicate this type of thing. So part of that is self-reflection. And you gave one example. Another example, maybe, you know, I know we did this in another district, is give, you know, professional development or support for parents, you know, on, you know, watching your kid using technology and how to kind of safeguard that and keep an eye on things like that. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do, certainly. So we as a school district will also be reflecting and sharing out what we learned and how we can improve, and some of those things that will involve resources. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Adams and then Mr. Beatty to kind of fill in any holes that I left there.
And I just coincide with what you're sharing, Bill. And Nicole, part of what I was mentioning in terms of having spaces where community can have conversation, it includes that as well. So that resource will be present. And I know that this is on Ryan's mind and heart as well. So, yeah.
And I would just say, Ms. Brandolini, that because this is an ongoing investigation, there would be no resources that we could share at this time because no conclusions have been made yet. So it would be important to kind of allow us to do the investigation, to do it well, and then determine kind of what the needs are for our community and for our staff and for our families, and then provide them with the appropriate resources. So that would be my just suggestion.
Thank you very much. So I'm hearing patience and just kind of let you all kind of do your work, and we will all be awaiting further guidance from you. Thanks.
Great. Any other comments or questions by the committee? All right, seeing none, we will transition from that important report to the exciting budget update by our own Dr. Duff.
Excuse me, Chairman Gates,
Yes,
may I interject? Could I just add one more thing to my report?
absolutely.
Kind of a breaking news type of thing. I know we had talked a little bit about this question about our new athletic director, and we're in the process of contract negotiations. That contract has been signed. He's here tonight, so I was hoping instead of a press release that we could, I always like to respectfully share our new employees to our school committee first. So is it okay if I introduce our new athletic director?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. So as people know or may not, we've been in the process of looking for a new director of athletics, and Principal McGuire and her screening committee have led the process, a very comprehensive process. I believe we had maybe close to 100 applicants. So it's a highly sought after position and a great place to be, obviously, here in Scituate. On behalf of Dr. McGuire, we're pleased to announce that Scott Payne has been named the new athletic director of the Scituate Public Schools. He's currently the athletic director and community outreach coordinator for Hull Public Schools. He formerly served as the same capacity for over a decade in the Norwell school system. He has long associations with the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association as a tournament director for football, ice hockey, and lacrosse. And as a former tournament director for football, I can tell you it's a lot of work and a lot of organization. So to do 3 sports is quite a task. So he's done that, and he's also a member of the COVID task force for the MIAA as well. Dr. McGuire had high praise for Mr. Payne, saying with, quote, "With a reputation across the South Shore as an experienced, hardworking individual, Payne is the ideal candidate to become part of our team to move our students' athletic programs and districts forward." She noted his desire to be a visible and active member of the town and schools. Quoting, "Scott is passionate about developing and creating programs to the middle and high school that encompass the whole student experience through academic achievement, athletic skill building, character development, and giving back to the community that has given him so much as an athlete." Mr. Payne is a resident of Scituate. He said he was drawn to the new role in part because of the town's support for athletics. They have made a great investment in their facilities as well. He talked about that. And he expressed a desire to know the students and families and is excited about getting back to more normalcy in the sports season as soon as possible. His long-range goals include more team opportunities at the middle school levels, as well as to have a unified sports program district-wide to encourage inclusivity and participation for all students. So I want to welcome Mr. Payne. I know he's on the call. Chairman Gates, if you'd like to give him an opportunity or want to ask him any questions, he is here this evening. But I do want to thank the screening committee that put in a lot of time and effort, and he was the unanimous top choice by the entire committee and the high school office team, and my choice as well. So pretty straight across the board. We got a good one.
Absolutely. If Mr. Payne is on the Zoom, if he could just raise his hand using the Zoom option, I can ask him to unmute. If you'd
Mr.
like.
Payne is a co-host. He can speak.
Okay, thank you.
I have unmuted.
Got it. The floor is yours if you'd like to make any comments, Mr. Payne. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Good evening, everyone. It's an extreme pleasure for me to be here this evening. There is not a more happier person in the town of Scituate tonight, I can tell you that. I have an extreme passion for high school athletics. I've lived on the South Shore my whole life. And, you know, feel like this is just an incredible opportunity for me to live in the town and come to work at the high school and be part of what is an amazing team with Dr. McGuire and Mr. Louette and Ms. Hughes and Superintendent Burkhead. The investment that the town has made in the facilities and whatnot is just phenomenal. I have a lot of thoughts and ideas in my head that I would like to, you know, address, not right off the bat. First and foremost, for me, it's going to be about getting to know the students. My priority always is the students first, student athletes first. And I take pride in getting to know them and understanding them and realizing what their needs are, needs and wants. Having the resources of someone like Mr. Adams is an extremely exciting opportunity for me. I've never had anything like that before. So, you know, again, living in the town, I'll be very visible. My head will be buried in the office in the morning. I will be at lunch, and then I will be on the fields in the afternoon. I think the most vital part of this job is to be visible at the athletic contest, making sure that everything goes properly and whatnot, and getting to meet the community members that attend these events as well. I don't want to take up too much time here. Honestly, I'm a people person. I could talk forever, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I just want everybody to know that I will work tirelessly to make our program the very best that it can be. One of my colleagues actually said to me, I know Scituate's a very successful program, but you're really heading to a diamond in the rough. I think there are some amazing things that could happen with our program. And, you know, if we all work together, the most important team is our team at the school, and we all need to be on the same page. And if we all work together, there's some amazing things that we can do. And I'm really looking forward to that opportunity.
Great, thank you and welcome. I look forward to seeing you around town, around the fields. You're walking into a great administration, and obviously the athletic complex is just finished for you to enjoy and take advantage of.
Thank you. And it's not like I'm easy to miss. Once you realize who I am, you'll see me.
All right. Thank you very much. Welcome on board, and hope this isn't your last school committee meeting. How's that?
No, I try to attend all of them, unless you don't want me there.
No, they're very exciting. No, but thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you around.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Superintendent Burkett, anything in addition?
No, Chairman Gates, thank you.
All right. All right, so as mentioned previously, next item on the agenda is our exciting budget update by our Director of Business and Finance, Dr. Dutch. I will hand it over to Dr. Dutch.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. So I'll jump right in and provide you with an update on where we are in the budget in this COVID year. So there are basically five categories for our budget, and the first one is administration. I'm going to go through each component of the budget so you can see where we are. I'm going to zoom in on these so they're a little bit easier to read in case it's difficult for you. And let me just explain what you're seeing on each line. So you'll have a description within each category of line items, what the adopted budget was, what our current budget is, and then the important pieces of this, our year-to-date actual, so what we've spent, the encumbrance amount, which is the amount that we have encumbered, for lack of a better term. We know what our bills will be, particularly for salaries. We've estimated in some cases, so that gives us a bottom line with about 2 months, 6 weeks left in the fiscal year. So that gives us an idea of where we are. And then there's a bottom line, and we'll get to that bottom line towards the end. Just to give you advance notice, where a line item is a single person's salary, that's been blacked out so that we're not publicizing that too blatantly. So with that said, we'll go into the school committees category within administration. You can see that we're not overspent in any of the line items here. So we're in pretty good shape. Within the superintendent's office, the same is true. Our line items are in pretty good shape. The uncertain area, what bills we still have may be in contracted services, but we have some makeup there if we need to in memberships and whatnot. Continuing with administration, we have curriculum leaders. Excuse me. So these are administrative positions and their salaries, which we budget for, so there's no change there. You'll see that we have a fairly significant negative in contract services. Those are some software applications. More importantly, they fit within some of these applications we purchased, partly because we were remote. So some of this should be reimbursed through the CARES Act from Plymouth County. You get the business, legal, and technology. I've combined those. Each one is a separate entity. Business clerical is a salary, my salary exclusively. Legal services, those are the legal services for the school committee. We have negotiated, I think the superintendent mentioned 12 MOUs this year. So that took quite a bit of legal resource. So we have overspent that line item at this point and may further, depending on what happens through the balance of this year. Information technology, the IT contract services, again, as a result of COVID, we had purchased some software that fell within that line item, and that should be reimbursed through Plymouth County as well. The technology support salaries, that line item is overspent because of some summer expenditures after July 1st this year. So we did not anticipate, so that's why you're seeing that. Curriculum leadership, those are salaries again, so we're in a good position with those salaries. Moving on to instruction, building level administration. You can see that we've combined principals and assistant principals. It's a $30 shortfall. Principal clerical, again, shortfall there, partly or primarily because we had some folks that retired and were due severance, sick leave severance, as well as a negotiated raise that occurred a little after the budget was set. So you're seeing that there. And then principal contract services, again, technology related items that have caused us to be overdrawn in that line item. But you can see in totality for building administration, we're in a pretty good place with revenue still there, with resources still there. Zooming into the teaching line item, teacher salaries, you see that we're overdrawn $369,000. As you know, we did not have fees for kindergarten this year. So we had a shortfall of $510,000. So that's where the bulk of that is. The balance is within special ed teachers below it. You see a shortfall there of $276,000. We have gotten $450,000 from the town to make up for that, and that's sitting in a capital account now that we are waiting for that to be released. And once that's released, the bulk of that shortfall will be absorbed with that money. Teaching continued brings us to support positions. So you've got substitute teachers. We still have a balance there to make up the difference of our shortfall in teachers. Instructional assistants, we had several paraprofessionals who took leave of absence without pay, and that's why you're seeing a surplus there. Library salaries is simply a difference between what was budgeted and the actual salaries. And then staff professional salaries is a portion of one person's salary. Continuing with special education, you can see that first line is the special education director's salary. And that was budgeted one amount, and the new special ed director came in at a different amount. So you're seeing that there. The clerical is a savings. The special ed secretary retired, and obviously a first year person came in to replace her at a lower salary. You see slight overdraw on out of district coordinator and the early childhood coordinator. And again, just difference in budget versus potentially step move, lane move, educational attainment. The rest you see are primarily surpluses here. We are not transporting as many students, so we jump down to special ed transportation salaries and transportation itself. So you see a savings there. You see that our private school tuition, we have about a $24,000 surplus with 6 months to go. So it's like we have encumbered a little bit over $1 million in anticipated bills. So we should be okay in the long run. Collaborative tuition, we've encumbered $465,000, overdrawn there $23,775. When you combine that with the private school tuition, you can see that we're pretty close to being in a good place with the tuition pieces of out-of-district placements, which is always a concern because of its unpredictability. So within special ed, we currently have a surplus, which would allow us to prepay some collaborative tuitions for next fall if that surplus remains. Continuing on with the teaching and instruction line, counseling and psychological, you can see there's a slight surplus there at this point. I won't go through each line. You see where we are with the encumbrances, and what's year-to-date available basically is what's left. And then psychological professional salaries, similarly, you see that we have a little bit of a surplus towards the end of the year in that line item as well. Before you start to think about all the different ways you might spend that, you'll see that when we're at the bottom of this, that we have quite a few other negatives that we'll be utilizing these surpluses to take care of. Textbooks misspelled, not a good word to misspell. I apologize. You see that there is surplus at this point. We have frozen purchases for textbooks and supplies. We're mid-May. If we haven't purchased to this point, we clearly don't need it for the balance of this year, and we'll begin to look at utilizing those funds elsewhere. And then you'll see that there's a $15,000 shortage for virtual high school. We didn't budget anything for virtual high school, and because the Latin teacher had taken a leave, that class was taught through virtual high school. So that's why you're seeing that in that line item. That'll bring us to student services, school nurse. You see a overdraw of $60,000. As you know, we've hired 4 part-time nurses through December, and now we still have 3 part-time nurses. Those are reimbursable through the CARES Act. We've gotten some of that already, and we anticipate getting the balance of that shortfall through the CARES Act. So that line item should be in good shape. Transportation, you see a significant shortage in bus driver salaries. We budgeted about $220,000 in revenue and have gotten much less than that, and I'll show you the revenues towards the end. So there's a significant shortfall there that will need to be made up. Fuel, we've not encumbered anything, and we will still get bills from the town. So that $40,000 will be whittled away, no doubt, as likely will be transportation parts for our vehicles to maintain and repair them. So you see a total shortfall in the transportation line item of a little bit over $100,000. Continuing student services, our athletic director, we're in good position there. Coaching stipends, again, you see there's a shortfall. Again, that's a revenue challenge. We pay some of the coaching stipends through fees. Our fees to this point are short. We may still get some more fee dollars in as the spring sports are coming in. But ultimately, you see that there's still a bit of a surplus because athletic and official fees have a balance in it. But again, we're likely to spend most of that because of spring official and fees that will be coming in. Student activities, just about all spent there. You see the encumbrance is all for the stipends for our advisors. And then school security, that is the resource officer, and you can see that will be fully spent as well. That brings us to operations and maintenance. Custodial is overdrawn. Quite a bit of overtime in the custodial line item for cleaning as a result of COVID. Every time we take the tents down due to wind or weather, we put them back up. We put them up on Sundays so that they're ready on Monday. That incurs overtime as well. So those are our expenses that will be reimbursed for us. Building maintenance salaries similarly results in some overtime there as well. Again, some of that is through an encumbrance, so we may be okay in that line item. Continuing to utilities, we are overdrawn there on gas by $18,000. We've estimated $34,000 still to be spent through the balance of this year. Our gas bills have been a little bit higher than we had anticipated. Our electric utilities, we've overcautiously encumbered in anticipation of the uncertainty, but I think we should be okay there so that our bottom line as it comes to utilities, we shouldn't be in too difficult a situation. Continuing with operations and maintenance, this is where it becomes a real challenge. Contract services, we're overdrawn $88,000 in electrical. Those are electrical repairs. Every time a univentilator breaks because of an electrical issue, we're calling somebody in to repair that. So it's created quite a shortfall. Much of that will be reimbursed through the CARES Act, but we're not certain how much to this point. Rubbish is overdrawn as well. As we moved into having students more spread out in the fall, we had to get some additional dumpsters to remove materials that weren't necessary, weren't needed. We also had some storage containers that went into that category, even though they weren't dumpsters, but we rented storage containers to store those materials that weren't needed because we had 50% fewer students. One of the big items, contract service heating. All of the repairs that we've done to the heating systems and the ventilation systems throughout the district, there's a cost associated with that. That number was much larger. It was closer to $600,000. We have gotten quite a bit of CARES Act money, and we anticipate continuing to get that back. And then contract service other is really materials, supplies that we bought, PPE, cleaning supplies to make sure that the facility was appropriately safe for our students and our staff. And again, we anticipate the bulk of that coming back to us through reimbursement through the CARES Act. So that you can see that there is a $600,000 shortfall in that line item. So let's look at the bottom line. So your grand total, when we look at what was the adopted budget and our actual current budget, what we've spent and what we've encumbered, we have a shortfall of $562,358. So that's based on the appropriation from the town. If you then look at the available funds that we have from our revenue, so we've got athletic, let me try and get this to be the right size so you can read it. Athletic fees, you can see that we budgeted $220, we've brought in $140. We pay out $150 from that. So there's not much left there. Non-resident tuition is our special ed programs that we run, so GEMS, IXL, the special ed programs, so that you can see the expenses of the staff salaries that we pay and budget for out of that line item. So you can see there's $200,000 of available funds there. We anticipated $140,000 in early childhood education fees, which we have not charged any. So that's a shortfall, which explains, again, the shortfall in teacher and special ed line item. We do have $16,000 left from previous years that we don't necessarily need to spend down at this point. Full day kindergarten, there's $9,000 left in that line item. We should spend that down and close that account out since we aren't charging for full day kindergarten moving forward. Gate receipts are the receipts that we charge for athletic events. And you can see we didn't have any revenue this year for that. So we've got a balance of $17,000 there. And our transportation revenue, we budgeted $230,000. We've brought in $57,000. So you can see there's quite a shortfall. We have paid some of any revenue we've brought in, we've utilized to pay salaries. So there are still the available funds as a carryover from previous years. So the total available fee revenue from fees is $276,000. You compare that to the $562,000 that we have as a shortfall, and you can see we still have a shortfall. So then that brings us to our grant funds, which have not been charged off against any of the accounts. And the 262 grant, it's a small amount, $7,000. Our Metco grant, we do have $291,000 that we have encumbered basically against that. There's still $170,000. We can only use it for Metco. We can't spend that money elsewhere. And I'm sure that our Metco director will find use for those funds before the end of the school year. Title I and Title IIA will both be spent on the grants as they were expected to, as will IDEA 240. That's our special ed grant. There's $127,000 left there. That can carry over till August of 22. So we've got another year if we don't spend all of that. Title IV is a limited amount, and that will get spent on what the grant had expected it to be. And then circuit breaker, you can see that we budgeted $967,000. We've received $577,000 of that so far. We had a carryover from last year of $834,000. We've spent $814,000 of that. So right now that leaves us with $597,000, most of which we try to utilize and save for the following year in the event that there are some students who move into the district or who are identified and need an out-of-district placement. So you can see our total grant funds available are $960,000. When you calculate the 276 plus the $450,000 in capital that we have available for full-day kindergarten, plus $250,000 that we just got back from the CARES Act last Friday from Plymouth County, which is not included in any of these numbers. I'm confident that we will be okay for the balance of this year and will not be negative. We will not be in the red. So that's where we are with the budget. Hopefully that gives you some deep insight into where the money goes, where it's gone, what we have left, and where we can take it from in the event that Plymouth County doesn't come through as we expect them to. I'll turn it back to you for questions, and I'll stop sharing.
Great, thanks. Dr. Dutch. I think this is helpful. This is a type of, I guess I'll call it reporting that I think that does help the committee understand where the money is going. We obviously do approve the budget, but then it's generally we approve the budget and then we don't really know what happened. So I think that this really gives us an idea of where we spent our money, where we have excess, and where there's shortfall. I will open up to the committee for any questions. Actually, I'll open up to the committee first with any comments or questions, and I'll ask any that I may have after that. Anybody have anything?
Pete, I had one.
Sure, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Bob, for that update. Is there any word from the county commissioners of any assurances that any more payments or payments out of the CARES Act will be forthcoming before the end of the budget year, July 1st?
Yes, yes, we've gotten I won't call it a guarantee. We've gotten a commitment that they would complete reimbursements by May 31st.
Okay,
What we were told.
great.
There is a specific allotment that Scituate has, and the town in totality and the district itself has spent beyond that number. So some of the expenses won't be reimbursed through that. We do have the ability to look at ESSER money, which is through the federal government, through the state as a pass-through from the federal government, if need be, but that's a last resort, because I think the superintendent and I would like to try to save that to address student learning loss and provide opportunities for students, both academically and socially, emotionally, as we move forward into the next school year.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions by the committee?
Dr. Dutch, thanks for putting that together. You actually just answered all my questions on the CARES Act. So during your presentation on the supplies and materials, you mentioned there was about, we had done a freeze on that. It was about 22,000 left on that line item. We could potentially pay some special ed costs for next year. Are we also looking at potentially prepaying some curriculum costs for next year to try to ease that burden on next year's budget?
Yes, once we have a good idea of what the reimbursement will be from Plymouth County, and we have a better confidence level that will be okay, we would begin to pre-purchase items for next fall, the curriculum items that we didn't get to purchase this year.
Great, thank you. And I'm glad you came out and said that we spent every dime that the county had for us, because there's a lot of good work, or a lot of good things coming to the district because of that money that we received. So, I'm glad we took full advantage of that.
There definitely is a lot of good that came out of those funds, and I can't speak highly enough about both Jim Boudreau and Nancy Holt, who were very helpful. And I talked to other business administrators, and I haven't had to do much in requesting reimbursements from the county. Nancy takes care of all of that, and that's not true for all the other business managers. So I certainly appreciate her assistance and support in making that happen.
Any other committee members with comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Dutch, for that beautiful presentation. And it looks like we're going to be okay financially, and which is a lot better than I've seen some stories here and there about other communities that aren't in the situation we are. They're having to make deep cuts. So I hope that we continue on this path. We get the CARES Act money, and I think we'll be okay. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I just have a couple questions, Dr. First is, I know you summarized it, but generally, do you feel confident that we're going to be able to you know, reasonably offset any of these shortfalls?
I am. You know, there was a little while there. I had some concerns, but I'm sleeping well again, knowing that we've started to get reimbursements from the state. So I think we're going to be okay.
Okay. I have a couple specific questions. One that I'm really interested in is under the school committee, we've spent $60. I don't know what we spent $60 on.
And,
So-
and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head either.
I can't, you know, I don't know why you wouldn't know that, but I thought that was interesting. But just a couple questions on all special ed related. You did mention special ed transportation has decreased. Can you just provide a little bit of explanation if you know of why that is? Our kids, is it just that they didn't go to school as many days, or what's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Dr. Bobert is here, so I'm going to let her give you some specific examples. Michelle, if you don't mind.
Sure. So we had several students that went remotely, so they weren't transported, even the students in the out-of-district programs. And we also were able to make an adjustment with students that were originally under our responsibility, but we were able to delegate that to another district. So two students we're not funding their transportation. So just those kind of things. Andrea, also shout out to Andrea. She does a fantastic job with the transportation.
Great. No, I think it's good news. Just want to make sure we weren't missing anything, but no, thank you for that. And then the last one also, maybe for Michelle, maybe for Dr. Dutch, is as much as I like to think I understand circuit breaker, I'm going to ask it, could you just explain the carryover on this particular presentation?
Sure. So circuit breaker is funded based on the previous year's expenditures on out-of-district, on special education, most cases out-of-district, but in some cases it's in district students as well. So you're always basically 12 months behind as far as the revenue, and therefore you're also 12 months behind in the expenditure.
Okay.
You know, you're allowed to spend that in the year that you incurred the cost, in the year that you received the funds, but we've chosen historically to always spend from the previous year so that we have that available in the event that there are some unanticipated out-of-district costs.
Okay. Okay. And generally that available funds, well, in the years that we have available funds, it would go to potentially prepay those expenses. Okay.
It doesn't generally go to, it wouldn't always go to prepay. If you would overspend, if you would underspend what you had as a carryover, you would use that amount as a prepayment.
Okay.
But you generally wouldn't prepay with the revenue that's coming in that particular year.
If I can just add, Chairman Gates, so the money that we talked about Scituate getting from circuit breaker this year was based on last year's tuitions, and we're not going to spend it until next year because it's much better to budget that way. And then this year's circuit breaker will get next year in quarterly payments and so on. So it is a good way to do it, but you have it in an emergency.
It's an insurance policy.
No, I tend to want to, I convince myself I understand. I think I do. I just the accounting piece that stumps me sometimes, but no, thank you for that.
Peter,
yes, Mr. Long.
Sorry, I should have a follow-up question to that if you're done.
Yep, it's all yours.
I don't know if this is for Dr. Dutch or Dr. Bobert. Have we heard from any districts or any schools that we send our children out to on tuition costs for next year, or if they're expecting to have any kind of increase to what we're seeing this year?
I don't think we've heard. Those tuition increases have to be approved by OSD, and sometimes that happens in the middle of the year. I usually try to account for like a small increase just in case, like a little 3% increase of tuitions, but I have not heard yet definitively.
Peter, can I
Alright.
ask another, just one more question?
Yes, Ms. Lindblom.
Because the town passed the new account, the SPED revolving account. Do we expect to be able to put any money into that, or would that come out of town hall? You know, at the end, you know, once circuit breaker comes in, or, you know, if there's anything left, would you take that step to finally put money into that?
There's ongoing conversation as to how that account will be funded. So I'm going to not answer that at this point. Certainly, we could take surplus funds that we may have and move it into that account by a vote of the school committee and the town. The town is really the only entity that can put money into that stabilization account. But we've had some conversation about the town putting some funds in there, particularly a startup. So it's ongoing.
Okay. No, I mean, I know this year's been tight, but.
I see Tony smiling in one of
Me
the
too. Yeah, I
Hollywood
see that.
squares.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, again, thanks, Dr. Dutch. I think that this is helpful stuff. I know we've had several conversations. This is just, again, this just goes along our theme of being transparent. I don't think we've generally seen this level of detail on a regular basis, so we appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Your money, I'm happy to do so.
All right, so this is the first opportunity for public comment. For those in attendance, if you have a question, please scroll over your name on the participant option and raise your hand. I will then call on you and ask to provide your name and address. If you're not comfortable with your address, please just provide your school affiliation. Please be reminded of the school committee policy on public comment. This is a public comment section and not a question and answer session. Superintendent and Jamil have already commented on the middle school incident. Most likely deflect any specific questions as it relates to that. So with that being said, I see one hand. Michelle Ramapochia. The floor is yours.
Hi. I just wanted to welcome the new DEI director, and you know, I appreciate the sentiments he expressed early in the call. This is something that definitely has to be approached with a lot of love. There's a lot of concern in our particular family because we have students who are affected by those messages conveyed in the PowerPoint or the slide deck. And it causes a lot of harm, it causes a lot of damage, and I'm looking forward to seeing the restorative justice that can be brought about to help our kids who are really hurting because of this heal. And I hope that the community sees the need for the DEI work that's been done and the need for having a DEI director. And I would just also add that it would go a long way to help with our community's sense of understanding of sort of, you know, sensitivity to other people if we had more staff in the district who are people of color. So I'm hoping to see that I'm just going to call you Jamil because that's what you said we could call you. I would like to see that this is the beginning of a hiring process that brings in more people of color into our community and into our schools. Thank you.
I missed your address, Sugar. We will gain that. Robin Glazier.
Hi, Hi, 26 Persimmon Drive. So as usual, thanks for tonight's meeting. Lots of information. I'm grateful for the detailed budget information from Dr. Dutch. I just have wanted to see that for a while, and it's nice that he continues to enlighten us on what goes on. And also thanks to Mr. Adams. My kids have, you know, been longtime best friends with kids in the district who've experienced some things that he's talking about, and it's nice to see him aboard. So to change the topic a little bit, some of us were unaware that Mr. Haddad is retiring from the high school French program. And as soon as I told my kids, they both said how disappointed they were that all these students won't get to have him in the future. So I feel like there's probably literally hundreds of families who feel like that. Mr. Haddad literally spends every afternoon tutoring kids after school. I mean, I don't even know when he goes home most days. He spent a lot of his time on our kids when they had him. And I'm just grateful. I know our kids are grateful, and their friends were grateful for his attention. You know, like, he never gives up. He will stick with them until they finally understand and comprehend and know how to speak the language. And so when I heard he's retiring, I just thought I wanted to say thank you, and you know, maybe make sure people are aware in case anybody wants to send him a thank you send off before he leaves. You know, he's just the kind of teacher who, if the conversation organically left the topic of French and, you know, landed on a student's upcoming essay for another class, he would brainstorm with them on those kinds of things. So he, you know, I think he was just all around a favorite teacher for probably so many students. I know my kids just relied on him so much. So he's been such a positive influence. I think we'll all be sad to see him go, but I'm sure his retirement will be fun-filled and interesting, because I think that's probably who he is anyway. And we were happy and lucky to have him in our kids' lives. And so we're just grateful for him, and, you know, sad to see him go. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for the kind words regarding Mr. Haddad. Dina Dre, name and address, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, Dina Dre, Clock Road, and my children are at Gates. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone in the committee for all the wonderful work you've done. I've had the pleasure of working with most of you virtually, as I've helped in DEI subcommittees this school year. Superintendent Burkhead has done an incredible job all around in my book, as well as the current school board and the new DEI director, Jamil. So thank you all. Especially like to thank Mike Long for his Q&A this past week. I really appreciate all of your efforts, especially in the DEI capacity. Obviously, I'm a woman of color. My children are BIPOC, Black, as well as Indigenous, and they attend Scituate public schools. People of color should not have to feel unheard or unsafe in our town. So the idea that activism does not belong in schools is very detrimental, especially when it is our children who suffer the most when these racist incidents continue to happen within our school system. So keeping our children safe from being racially targeted and discriminated against is not political, and it is not activism. So for those who oppose the DEI work, these racist incidents, like the one that we had this past week, are exactly why we need it. So I just wanted to thank all of you for all the terrific work that you've done. I feel seen and heard, and I hope to be able to continue to work with all of you. Thanks a lot.
Great. Those might be the best comments and words that we've heard in a long time. So thank you. Thank you for recognizing the work that we're doing. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. And to me, that just means, again, that our district, Superintendent Burke and his team have done a fantastic job in delivering the news, handling the incident, and being transparent as possible. So thank you. Thank you for those that are in attendance here. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Superintendent and your team for doing what you do. There will be another opportunity for public comments at the end of the meeting. Without further ado, we're going to move on to our presentation section, which is Mr. Greg Ranieri. Business, he has a long title. Business, PE, Health, Family, Consumer Services, Consumer Science, and Miss Lindsay Newton, Gates Adjustment Counselor, will give an overview of the social emotional programs.
Thank you, everybody. Give me 1 second to share my screen. If you don't see, I know it's not a Dr. Dutch Prezi, but a slideshow come up, please let me know.
Yep, we see it.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Well, I have the pleasure tonight, along with Ms. Newton, to talk about some social emotional work that the district's been doing for a few years now. Particularly tonight, I just want to make sure we have a common understanding of social emotional learning. The intent of this purpose for this presentation, also known as social emotional development. Who is and what is the Pear Institute? What is the Clover model of social emotional development? And finally, what is the holistic student assessment, and what is some of that data telling us, and what are we doing about that data? So with respect to social emotional development, just to make sure we have a common understanding before we move into the meat of the presentation, it refers to capacities that we have as individuals, in this case our students, but we also have them as adults, to manage and express our emotions, form positive relationships with others, and engage with the world around us. In the student realm, it's really important for us to maximize, it's really the foundation to maximize academic performance, long-term health outcomes, and to nurture student resilience. Kind of a lot going here in this slide, and some of you guys have probably heard a little bit about PAIR through the Thursday Thoughts with the PAIR Tips of the Week that really touch upon the Clover model, which I'm going to go into in a moment. But essentially, PAIR's goal is to help young people develop their social emotional development skills, focus on strengths, build resiliencies in order to have a healthy adulthood. Initially started as a joint venture between Harvard and McLean, Harvard Medical School and McLean Hospital, to conduct research in ways to promote social emotional development. The topic of social emotional development has really blown up across in the last few years, and as a result, PAIR has actually spun off to create its own entity. The focus of PAIR, their approach, is to know every child, and we'll get into how that's done through the holistic student assessment. It's to focus on every child's strengths. Every child has either relative strengths or areas of strength. Create proactive systems within organizations to support all students, and to use data to support all learners. So what is the, oh wow, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Wouldn't anticipate the house phone ringing like that. The Clover model of social emotional development was created by Dr. Gil Noem. It combines years of developmental theory and practice. The Clover model nurtures the growth of 4 fundamental ingredients that all age students need to thrive and learn, and that is active engagement, assertiveness, belonging, and reflection. Clover helps us nurture and teach and foster the development of our youth. Provide a little more context about Clover and the leaves within Clover. The 4 elements of healthy development and social emotional well-being consist of assertiveness, active engagement, sense of belonging, and overall reflection. And you can see a few call-out points for each element of Clover. An example might be, someone might be introverted. They may express their assertiveness through writing rather than talking in front of people. Their belonging belief might be limited to a few close friends rather than a larger group. They might spend a lot of time taking reflective walks with their dog. How the leaves show up in each one of us is very different, but regardless, we all still need all 4 leaves of the Clover. Clover is based on an understanding that helps us grow and experience helps us as we grow through our stages of development. I think we all can imagine a larger leaf in our early education students would be active engagement, right? If you look at the number of motions per minute and anybody from 0 to age 5, it would put the rest of us to shame. Ages 6 to 10, the leaf of assertiveness really starts to grow a bit, where kids develop their own voice and what they like to do and how they're engaged. And by the time we move on to adolescence, students are really trying to figure out where they belong. And by the time we hit late adolescence, there's areas of reflection and what you want from life and the world really start to grow. Even though all the leaves might be prominent at certain ages of development, we're always under construction with all of these leaves, and that includes us as adults. How is the Clover model being used in our schools? This is an illustration from Gates, and if Mr. Beatty's on the call here, I'm going to ask him to add some context in a moment. The Clover model is and has been used in the district for a few years now. There's been self-assessment work done by school-based SED teams, resulting in individual schools focusing on different leaves. For example, several schools have implemented whole school strategies focusing on leaves of assertiveness and belonging. With respect to assertiveness, there have been efforts pertaining to infusing voice and choice into curriculum, as well as personalized learning for our students. Belonging has been a focus at many schools, including Gates. Gates is, you can see here, these individual Post-it notes represent thoughts from teachers during in-service time, focusing on developmental relationships. Mr. Beatty, if you are present and want to unmute, maybe you could talk about your work with the Search Institute and the Developmental Relationships Framework.
I'll be right with you. I apologize.
So sorry, I got kicked out of the meeting and now I'm back in.
I got him. You're good.
Thank you. So Mr. Ranieri, exactly what you said. I think at Gates, we care immensely about knowing each individual student that we have. We use the pair data. We've used it for about, I think, 5 years now, and we find it to be a really valuable tool that allows us to get to know our students' strengths in constructs such as assertiveness and belonging and relationships with peers and relationships with adults. 2 years ago, we collaborated with the Facts Coalition and essentially adopted an advisory curriculum put out by the Search Institute, which focuses on developing relationships between students and adults. We want every single student in our school to have at least one adult that they can turn to at any with any problem in order to support them and help them and nurture them. And so the 5 pillars of the Search Institute are as follows. Expand possibilities, share power, provide support, challenge growth, address care. And unlike some other initiatives that we've done in the past, our teachers are skilled at sharing power with students every day. Our teachers are skilled at challenging students. And when we work together to identify different ways to do this, whether it deals with curriculum or whether it deals with how we greet students or design assessments to get to know students, it provides us with more opportunities to develop these relationships that we know are so critical. And that had been an area, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, as one of our weaker areas at Gates, the relationships with adults. And that has continued to grow as a result of our work with advisory and other things that we're putting in place. And it links directly to the PAIR piece. So we're very grateful for the continued support of PAIR as well as our advisory program with the Search Institute.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. I'd also like to add culture setting messages such as "You are important," championed by Superintendent Burkhead to all students and staff, as well as the appointment of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director, Mr. Adams, Jamil. These are organizational commitments to belonging. Every student, every teacher, every faculty member, every staff member to belong as part of the Scituate Public Schools family. So Bill and Jamil, whether you realize it or not, welcome to the PAIR family. I want to take things to the next level a little bit and refer to some of the data that Ryan had talked about. So one of the things that we administer in the school year is this assessment called the HSA, or it's a self-report. Which it helps us understand our students' social emotional development. The HSA is a data-driven tool. There are a couple of views. It's I found it to be extremely powerful on an aggregated and individual level. So it's a quick snapshot. You can look at it again on an aggregated level based on grade level, grade spans, schools, gender, you name it. Any type of sortable data will allow us to kind of look into subgroups. As far as to look at trends, and Ms. Newton's going to talk about one of those trends a little later that resulted in a group at Gates. And there's also individual profiles for each student. The result of the HSA report, which is 84 questions, it's built upon a Likert scale where students respond to, ends up having students ultimately based on the number of strengths and challenges that they demonstrate in the self-report to being in areas of tier 1. So that means they benefit from whole school, whole class strategies, just like anybody else would. In a tier where there's more of an even balance of strengths and challenges, where they would benefit from small group or targeted supports, or they've identified and they have significantly more challenges than strengths, and they may be in need of specialized interventions. The attached table is a quick breakout of HSA data from this year. Just so you know as a relative context when you look at some of these numbers, we administer the HSA once a year, and it's a snapshot once a year. At the secondary level, it was administered in right around November, I believe, Mr. Beatty, or early December, so before the new year. And in our elementary grades, grade 5 at this point is the only grade that we're implementing pairing. Hopefully optimistic that we can expand down to grade 4 as we build our capacity. It was done right after the new year. So we were still in the depth of winter, the depth of remote learning, the depth of hybrid learning, when you start to look at some of the data that we're about to share. You'll see that there's trends analysis. We take a look at, again, aggregated trend analysis, individual student analysis. We can look at students from year to year to look at growth. You can see I shaded this data so you can look at trends in tier 3, tier 2, the overall number of average strengths reported, the overall number of challenges. And you can see the grade 5 last year's, grade 6 this year. They're cohorted out by color. And so we can kind of look at aggregated data to see if anything materially pops or changes as we review data annually. The logical next step is to think about and to see how does Clover, the SED development model of Clover, interface with the HSA. So the HSA is, again, a student self-report, and it's broken out into various domains. You'll see that the 3 domains are resiliencies that students, that we try to grow in our students, relationships that they have with peers and adults, as well as learning and school engagement. So for each one of these, there are questions asked in the HSA survey that allows the analytics behind the scenes and Qualtrics and all the wonderful matrix behind the scenes to calculate and provide scores for each of our students overall. You can see this is color-coded a bit. So the resiliencies of trust and empathy, along with relationships with peers and adults, would go into weighing into the belonging leaf. You can see that optimism and reflection would reflect to the reflection leaf. Action orientation and emotion control would be the active engagement leaf. Next few slides is looking at the top 3 strengths and challenges by grade span. Again, at this point in time, we're only collecting paired HSA data in grade 5, and we hope to transition to grade 4. I know that there's energy and support for that with the elementary leadership team. So we look forward to getting that data as well. You can see the top 3 strengths and challenges from last year to this year. Items that have asterisks next to them are items that represent our new either strengths and or challenges that have changed since the prior year. One of the things you'll notice starred on each page is perseverance. And we'll talk about the impacts of the pandemic and some of the HSA data that we have dug into and what the impacts of the pandemic might be on our students. You can see in all the slides, our students overall have great empathy, which is an awesome strength for young people to have. Emotion control and their relationships with peers are areas of strength. Those things should all be celebrated, and we want to build on those strengths. Remember, the Clover model is a strengths-based program, and we certainly want to expand and grow any strengths while mitigating any relative challenges. And going a little bit more fine-grained to the next level, what might the pandemic's impact be on social emotional development of our students? Again, with respect to assertiveness, there could be a loss of voice and choice in the virtual environment. Good to know that we're not in the virtual environment anymore, and there's no one that's more excited to administer HSA next year to see the transitions in data from last year to this year than I am. You can see that with respect to active engagement, the lack of physical activity when at home could be reduced sports opportunities, play opportunities, could be with respect to reflection, anxiety, and difficulty making meaning of what this pandemic all is. Certainly challenging things for young people to do. Want to go a little bit more fine grain into an example of one of the scales. One of the scales that we saw that popped as a new relative challenge for us in grades 5 through 12 was the scale of perseverance. And you'll see on this slide there's how PEAR defines perseverance. And it's the persistence to work and problem solve despite obstacles. And an example question on the HSA that a student might experience is, when I try to accomplish something, I achieve it. And they're asked to respond to, again, these series of prompts, 84 prompts on a not at all, sometimes, often, or almost always scale. So depending on how they respond to certain questions, those questions get aggregated based on the scales. You can see with respect to perseverance from last year to this year, as a strength, it decreased slightly. However, in more of our students, it actually doubled as a relative challenge to be seen in 26% of our students. Another example of a scale would be optimism. So I was very interested to take a look at optimism and the impacts of the optimism of our students based on the pandemic. And you can see optimism to the enthusiasm and hopefulness for one's life. More good things, and again, an example of a question would be, more good things than bad will happen to me. On a scale, again, on that Likert scale of from almost always to not at all, right? Likely aspects related to the pandemic can impact our students' ability to both persevere and have a sense of optimism. Even for well-adjusted adults, this has been a bit of a long road for us, and to see this type of data in our students is not surprising. And the good news is that the end is closer than the beginning, and our kids are resilient. The HSA is also dovetailed with the social strengths and difficulties questionnaire. And one of the strengths and difficulties questions, or the series of questions, would be on emotional symptoms. And to define emotional symptoms, those are checks for any possible emotional disorders, such as depression, anxiety, or simply indicates the respondent's experience emotional difficulties. An example question that a student might see is, I'm often unhappy, depressed, or tearful. Again, answering on that Likert scale. You can see overall it hasn't really shifted too much as far as a strength, and it has nudged up as far as a relative challenge for our students, from 15% experience last year as a challenge and challenge criteria to 19.4% this year. Some other trends we noticed across the district over a series of years is that overall assertiveness has remained a top challenge across the district. And this could have even been exacerbated further by the pandemic. It's likely harder to feel seen or heard in a remote or hybrid learning model. Relationships with peers, on the other end, once again is one of our top strengths for our students, and was last year as well. This bodes well for related skills of empathy and school bonding, which are also relative areas of strength. Again, connects well to our sense of belonging overall. I want to turn it over right now to Miss Lindsay Newton, adjustment counselor at Gates Middle School. She's going to talk a little bit about boots on the ground, how the HSA's data is used at RTI meetings and on small group level. So, Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. Lindsay Newton, Gates Adjustment Counselor. I love that literally my cat just chose this moment to open the door and come in. So if you hear him meowing, I do apologize. I kept him out for 2 hours, but he needed in. So I'm here really to talk about what this looks like and how we use this information actually within the school to help our students. So what we do is when we get the HSA data, it puts each student into a tiered level, as Greg pointed out and explained. And so for us, tier 1 students are the ones that are thriving. They're doing great with whatever whole school or whole classroom interventions and all those best teaching practices that are already in place naturally and for our professional development. Tier 2 is when we really work with the teachers and the staff to address the challenges that have been identified. I apologize. And we also are really fortunate to have PAIR's toolkit. So they have all these sorts of different interventions that they recommend, as Greg's pulling it up, in the different categories. So it might be a way to lead a classroom discussion. It might be a way to have students engage a little bit more. It might be a way to facilitate small groups within your classroom. So there are a lot of classroom-based suggestions for those students that we see in tier 2. Nice examples. Thank you, Greg. And then tier 3 are the students, and obviously that's the smallest percentage of students that the counseling staff divvies up, and we all meet, or one of us will meet individually with every tier 3 student. And so myself being the adjustment counselor, I work with all grades. So if there's any student that's already on my caseload, I meet with that student. Otherwise, it would go to their school counselor. And during that interview, you identify, where was the student in their life when they were taking this HSA? Were they going through a really tough time and this is just a blip on the radar for them? Or is this really accurate for what their experience is overall? And after we have this discussion with the student, it then turns into the communication made with parents about, hey, here's this assessment that your student took, and here's the conversation that we had about it, and their thoughts. And here are some of the things that really stuck out of the challenges that they had, as well as the strengths that they presented, if they presented strengths. And so the tier 3, it's really focused on some more individualized interventions, because these are the kids that are really struggling, and focusing on what are the challenge areas and really using the identified strengths in order to build and work through those challenge areas. Want to do the next slide, Greg?
I'm trying to. Oh, there we go.
Oh, too far. Okay. And so I wanted to give some examples of what this looks like. One of the biggest ways we discuss our tier 2 and tier 3 students is through our RTI process. So if anybody's not aware of that, at Gates, we have a really great response to intervention model in which all teachers are on a team and they meet bi-weekly and review any kind of students that they have concerns about, talk about student achievement, and we specifically have one RTI set aside for each team that they'll go over the data. And so the school counselor will create a presentation and review for your grade and your team, what did the strengths look like? Because that's the really cool thing with the access we have to Qualtrics. We can do different search parameters and I can give you just your class. I can give you just the boys in your class, etc. And so we can give some really great information for the teachers in smaller teams as to what could benefit. And we're really looking at teachers to help with those tier 2 students where being part of the whole class intervention is going to be most effective for them. And moving on to the tier 3 students is really when it might be a referral for special education or 504. Lots of the students on tier 3 might already have one of those services in place. So it might be a review of whatever current plan they have. We offer a variety of small group. So we do social groups if it's more belonging and peer interaction. We could also do specific mental health groups if we're looking at anxiety as an issue. Although that's not one of the factors, it definitely shows up in the emotional control, and there's one other emotional factor. And then this year, we actually piloted another group that is, the curriculum is through the parent program, and it's called Strong Links. And that was all about using assertiveness and social awareness to build belonging in your school community. So it really looked for students that were kind, but yet almost like the followers types, and really needed to learn a little bit more of that assertiveness and social awareness with their peers. And so I did run that for the first time this year using the Strong Links curriculum. And so it's just another example of things we're doing to really try to put in place for the challenge that we see for our students. They might also do brief individual counseling with their school counselor or myself, as well as outside referrals for supports. That's a big one. Like I said, we discussed them at RTI, if there's more individualized interventions that need to be done in the classroom. And then also, the really important piece I wanted to point on here was that increased communication with parents. Because as I said, at the end of every interview we do with any Tier 3 student, there's parent communication at the end to say, here's what we discussed and here's what's going on. How can we work together to best support your student? And oftentimes that means maybe more increased communication, maybe like a weekly communication set up so that we can help monitor if what we're putting in place is actually effective and helpful for students.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Welcome.
Excellent. Just like to take the opportunity to just give a little bit more context to the system and structures as a quick closeout. You know, we and anybody that works in the health and wellness domain, we analyze and look at data just like any core content area would, whether it's youth risk behavior data or HSA data. It allows us to interface and put our students in the best possible position to succeed. So I'd like to thank the district for its commitment to PAIR over recent years. I was fortunate to be trained as a HSA interpretationist through PAIR along with Dr. McGuire. We have a structural social emotional development team consisting of myself, Jen Arnold, Tammy Rundle, Ryan Beatty, Donna Moffett, Lisa McGuire, and Flo, our consultant from PAIR. On individual school level, we have SED teams that I have the pleasure to work with each year. They consist of the principal, the school nurse, a teacher, school psychologist, an adjustment counselor. And so while PAIR is overall relatively new to the district, it continues to gain momentum, and people that interface with it really see the value that it can bring for our students. So it's been a while, and this is the first time I've had the pleasure to, honor rather, to present or discuss PAIR in a public forum at a school committee meeting. And with that, the next couple slides are just examples of each of the scales and questions, sample question items. School committee, you got the same thing as a handout as part of your packet. These questions and handout is given to every family as part of their email, proactive email about communications about the HSA. And at this point, I'd be happy to do my best to answer any questions that the committee may have on Clover, PAIR, HSA, social emotional development. It's all awesome, and I love every second of it. So.
Great, thanks, Greg and Lindsay. That was, I think it's helpful for those on the call, for those school committee members, to realize there's a lot of other work going on other than the usual, reading, writing, arithmetic sort of stuff. I'll admit that I'm not an expert in all that you speak. But I know that this is the area that many of us are concerned about going forward. I'm going to open up to the committee for their questions. I just have a couple, but I'm going to open up to the committee first to see if they have any questions or comments for you. So any members, feel free.
I'll start, Pete.
Okay, Mr. Hayes.
Greg and Lindsay, thank you very much. I really don't have any questions. I had a number written down when I first read the presentation, and then as I was going through it, I checked off a lot of my questions that were answered, and that shows what a good presentation you people had, especially you, Greg. And Greg, this is great that with the new peer model, but you're no stranger to the school committee or to the school community. And your hard work and dedication and and excellence in this area. You've been doing it for many years. I mean, what was it, 8, 9, 10 years ago, maybe, that you were instrumental with RTI in getting that to be a vital part of what we try to use to help kids. So it's been a long, interesting, and useful journey that we've been on, but that I feel confident in saying that without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I want to thank you very much.
Mr. Hayes, I've been here since 2003, got fortunate, matriculated to the department chair position 2006, and every day has been an absolute honor and a privilege. I love Scituate. I love everything that I do, and look forward to coming to school every day. So look forward to many more happy, healthy years with the team.
You bet.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a couple of comments, a question first. So I think when this first, when I first started hearing about PAIR, I was a school committee audience member. I've come so far. And McLean was more involved, I think. So you're saying that now they're really not, PAIR is just completely separate from that? Because
So I guess what I'm saying is that it started as a project between Harvard Medical School and McLean, and it grew so significantly that it spun off to become its own entity, led by Dr. Noem, who still works at Harvard today. And recently, over the break, I was fortunate to read his book on the 10 best bets to the post-pandemic, and so I would say that even the tenets of Harvard and McLean are right there. They just have spun off probably due to legalities and growth opportunities. So they've changed their email address to at PAIR Inc. So so PAIR.org. So I haven't noticed any difference in. Actually, I've noticed just better opportunities with them. Maybe it's they've whether it's their tech or data analysts or their support staff, very, very responsive. I mean, within 2 hours, I have them on text messages, and I can literally ask them any question. So, for example, I just asked them on the way before today. I'm like, hey, just want to confirm about the number of kids nationwide to take the HSA. And they're like, oh, it's over 100,000, right? So they're just very responsive. And note that the data is normed against other grade levels, right? So, a 7th grader is compared to other 7th graders against that are nationally normed. So it's not necessarily compared to all of the students that take it. It's normed against the students that in their profile that would take it.
And I think an interesting, looking forward, it'll be really interesting to see how this data comes out, post-pandemic, and where the kids are now, where they were, where they are now emotionally, and then how they show their resiliency to bounce back. So I'm looking forward to that presentation.
I can't wait. I will happily, we try to administer the HSA in November. So we want the students to get settled into the school year, get settled about a quarter into the school year, but before the holidays where, things can, emotions and all sorts of stuff can happen around the holidays, right? So it's usually, our target is early November, somewhere between November 1st and November 10th to administer. That still gives us 3 quarters of the school year to analyze and use the data in really productive ways with SED teams at the school level, and to put in interventions. And one of the things that I'm just really the opportunities are endless, and I don't want to extend too long, but I could literally talk about this stuff for hours. Is that one of the reasons why they say, hey, can we go down to 4th graders, because the 5th grade teachers want to see the prior year data to help with grouping, so classes, or you can see the HSA profile of your students of your incoming class. How powerful would that be to be a teacher, to see the profile of your students from the prior year, to see their levels of assertiveness, or the levels of reflection, or areas that you might want to work on beyond just reading, writing, arithmetic, right? They're embedding social emotional scales into goals as well is super important. I really wholeheartedly feel, and there's not going to be much that would take me off this mindset, is that work is the key to unlocking the potential of our students in this district. For us to fully optimize the academic achievement of our students, the holistic achievement of our students, whether it be as people, as students, you know, sons, daughters, you name it all. I think that, you know, I've got daughters that are 12, 10, and 8. And, you know, as a parent, this is the stuff you care about the most. You know, my wife today was like, oh, yeah, my daughter had an issue with recess, right? This is the stuff that keeps you up at night as a parent, is your kids being, you know, accepted and belonging, being in an environment that's culturally supportive to them, regardless of who they are and what they represent, because it's hard to learn if you're not at peace, right? It's hard to learn if you don't have that, that feeling of happiness, optimism, joy, you name it, all of it, and the elements of Clover aren't well balanced. So it looks different in all of us, right? You know, whether again introvert or extrovert, it can manifest itself in all of us differently, but it's super important work, and I'm honored to be part of it.
No, that's important. I mean, you said introvert versus extrovert, like finding out if a student is one of those, rather than, you know, they can be just an introvert and be like, yeah, I'm okay with who I am. And you know, there might not be something emotionally wrong with them. So, but that's important to find out. So you're not like pushing them to do things that they don't have no interest in doing.
No, you look to build on their strengths in different ways, right?
Right.
They
Yeah.
get their voice in different ways, whether it's through performances or writing, or, you know, there's just so many entry points for kids to express themselves as people, and it's all beautiful regardless of the path that they choose.
All right. Thank you, Greg and Lindsay, for the.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll add something in
Ms.
too.
Brennan.
I'm impressed that the data for tier 3 from the year change from 2019-20 to 2021 is small. It's low. I'm kind of surprised. I'm glad, but surprised to see that, considering. But it's nice to know, and one can only kind of derive from that it's due to the supports available to students and families. So considering, you know, I think there was, and rightfully so, a huge worry for families that with mental health and the pandemic and isolation and loneliness and increases in depression, and there was a lot of scary things out there. I think social media and the news and, you know, quick little snippets of, you know, kids are suicidal because, you know, it was just very, you know, scary data that was out there. And to see that, you know, if you're following 5th grade from last year into this year's 6th grade, the increase is less than 1% for tier 3. So I think that's significant.
I would agree. And I think it's, there's a few ways that you can look at this data, and I just look forward to analyze it year over year. I'd like to agree with you. I hope that our whole school and tier 2 and tier 3 interventions are working. That's why our data is improving as kids get older. Other possibilities, we could be seeing bubbles, you know, coming through, but we will continue to look at this trend, because really that aggregated data really shows, hopefully, if it continues that way and we can see that trend, that what we're doing is working for the aggregated whole. Certainly, there are going to be individual students who are in crisis, and they need supports in different ways, and there's no doubt about it. But the macro view is always good to keep in mind as well. And it's really, you know, again, I hate to be the extender here, but I'm going to. You know, we often sit and talk about kids at meetings, right? About, you know, Bill, Greg, you know, Nicole. It's very valuable. Very rarely are kids in those meetings, right? In the pair profile, it gives us an opportunity to bring the student voice into a meeting. And when you look at their profile in those scales, you start to piece some valuable information together, and it's part of the equation, right? Oftentimes it's adults talking about kids. So, hopefully she took the pair day, the HSA service.
She didn't yet, but this is the time she wants to show me her morning work from today. So
assertiveness, I like it.
No, but thanks so much to both of you, Lindsay as well. I'm really just seriously floored and so honestly relieved to see some of that tier 3 data, because that's the, you know, the scary kind of stuff that we were all so rightfully worried about with the pandemic. Not that it's not there, but just that it's not some giant spike of, you know, what do we do with this? How can we help these kids kind of a situation. So it's impressive to see. So it's great.
Great.
And Greg,
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Long.
that's fine. And Greg, I agree with everything that's said so far. There's a lot of great work that we're able to see and all the work being done behind the scenes. I just had a couple, hopefully, quick questions for you. Have we considered doing the HSA benchmarks a little bit more frequently? Maybe, you know, November and May to kind of see how kids go over the year, or would that be
We
too much?
certainly have. And so there's a budgetary impact to that, right? Every time we administer the survey, it's $3.85. You know, we started to look at it, at least initially where we're at right now. It's almost like taking a snapshot of our bank account every single year versus at the beginning, at the end of the year. It's not to say that there isn't value in doing it at the beginning and the end of the year. There's just a financial opportunity cost to that. And, you know, there's a little bit of a management piece to it, which isn't insurmountable. But we have, I assume, as this work with social emotional development continues to grow, we will revisit the idea of like a pre-post to look at kids in an individual year versus annually over time. You know, because right now we can look at a student, in 6th grade, in 7th grade, in 8th grade. So there's no real pre and post. It's more of a annual snapshot of development of a student. So, but there would be value in it. We're just not there yet.
And I apologize if I missed it, but have we kind of done an exit poll for the students as they walk out of the test or the survey, or as they, you know, sit down and hear some of that tier 2 or tier 3 intervention and just get their feedback on, you know, is this helping me, or is this, you know, I love what you did so far. Can I do this a little bit more to, you know, to help?
Yeah, so I'm going to defer to Lindsay on that. She deals with, you know, I'm on the higher end promotional, health promotion and prevention level. The intervention level starts to cross over to school counseling. So I want to hand that off to the most appropriate person.
Sure. So let me clarify. Was your question if we asked the kids at the end of the interventions, like, was this intervention helpful in you know, building on the challenges that we identified? Is that your question?
Well, that, and just as they walk out of taking the survey in November, you know, when you walked out of this, how did you feel? What is it, you know, just beyond the answers they put, you know, what kind of triggered in their minds, either taking the test or as they're walking out of it?
Okay, so on the day of the test. Yeah, so they are administered within their counseling classrooms if possible. That's how we've done them in years past. Counseling classes have looked different this year. So I think they pushed into one specific class, and it was everybody that day in that block did it. And their school counselor is present for all the classes that did so they have an established relationship with their school counselor, and that school counselor is present to explain, why are we taking HSA? What does it mean? I don't think there's specific discussions done at the end, just because it's within class time and they're trying to shift back into what they're doing scheduled. But that's definitely something that's discussed when we talk about it with our individual kids at the tier 3 level. You know, what did it look like that day? Does this ring true to what you were thinking and feeling? How does it feel to look at that data and see that your optimism is really, really low? But I think in general, most kids are like, oh yeah, it's another survey and I'm just kind of reporting accurately what's going on for me.
I will say students that I talk to when we discuss the HSA data with them, you know, it's almost like they're like, wow, it's almost like you know me. And I'm like, well, sure, you gave us this feedback, right? It's almost like a fortune teller, you know, when you start to discuss the HSA with an individual student, and it's because it's their voice, right? So that's the beauty of it.
Great, thank you. And again, this was a great presentation. Thank you for sharing it tonight.
Oh yeah, thanks again, Greg and Lindsay. I would just say that I think it's really at the heart of, I know that many of us feel is important in moving forward, especially after the year that we've been through. So all eyes are on you guys. I think it's important for our kids, and keep doing what you're doing, and good luck. All right. Moving forward, it's time. One of our regular public commenters is actually now on the other side of the camera and will be providing the Shore Grant update. Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Yates, for having Shore present tonight. I actually had gone back through the history, and I don't think Shore has ever presented to you a grant update. So for me to go over the $1.5 million that Shore has given back to Scituate High School over the last 30 years would probably take the remainder of this evening. So I'm not going to do that, but I am going to highlight a few of our most recent grants. I don't have a fancy slide presentation. I'm not that technical, so I figured I'd just talk about it and then answer any questions you may have. So Shore was started in 1990, and it was by a group of parents to promote funding for the 3 A's, which are academics, athletics, and arts. And part of that came out of, I believe, some budget cuts that were happening back in the early 90s in the school system. So what Shore does is they fundraise, and this year has been very difficult to fundraise. So we are working hard to kind of make up some of the lost funding that we do have. But I did want to say here on this meeting that if you've ever gone to a Scituate High School football game and gone to the concession stand, you've supported Shore. If you've ever gone on the North Pole Express, you know, in the last few years, you've supported Shore as well as Course. If you've ever done the Run for Scituate, you've supported Shore. So I thank you all for that. But Shore does still need your help going forward. But our most recent grant cycle saw some of our largest grants ever. We provided a $50,000 grant for the Scituate High School Harbor Project, which is the multimedia learning commons, formerly known as the library. So I know that the school committee has sat in that library many times for many meetings, and I just want to tell you, if you haven't seen it recently, please go take a look at it. It's bright, it's light, it's airy, and it's a place where all the kids want to be. So we were most proud, I think, of that most recent grant. As well as the utility part. We have this brand new multi-million-dollar facility outside, and we now have a utility cart that the athletic department can utilize to go from field to field, as well as the training staff. So hopefully nobody will ever be injured, but if need be, it can also remove an injured player from the fields as well. And we were able to fund girls golf this year so that the girls can have their own golf team in the spring. We were able to fund the first robotics competition team as well this year. So those are our grants for this year, but I also wanted to highlight just a couple of other things that we funded over the years. You've probably all heard about Mr. McGuire's amazing ornithology class. We funded the binoculars for that. We funded the telescopes for some of his other classes. I think when Mr. Beatty, who I see here on this call, was the English department chair, we funded some of their trips to World's End where they did some, I think it's transcendentalism. So we've definitely funded some of those types of field trips. We have a world-class engineering department. We funded a lot of the 3D printers and water jet cutters in that class as well. And we've also funded for the arts, computers for the AP art was just funded within the last year. We funded the Ableton systems. So reach out to Mr. Grouchot and he will show you how those work. And thanks to staff, he has enough for the entire class in there. I can't wait for live music to come back. The Pearl bass drum was also funded by Shore. So again, as you can see, it's a laundry list of items. I could go on and on and on. I'm very proud of the work that Shore has done. I'm proud of the work I've done on Shore since 2014. But I'm leaving Shore. My son graduates, my youngest will graduate on June 4th. And with that, I'll be taking a leave on June 30th as the president of Shore, but leaving it in the capable hands of Meredith Nelson and Caroline Hine. But before I do leave, I did want to just give, I think as Mr. Burkhead calls them, a sailor shout out to some of the amazing people that have worked on Shore through the years who also have graduating seniors, graduating their last senior through Scituate High School. Lori Schneider, Audrey Melanson, Maria Scott, Maura Dolly, Nora McCormick. And also a great big shout out to Alice Montgomery, who's a former president of Shore. She was on the board for over 3 years as the president, and she's also graduating her 4th and final child this year from Scituate High School. And to Lori Withrow, who I know will be back when Jack gets up to the high school, but she stayed on shore even when she had nobody at the high school because she was very committed to the work. So again, thank you for letting me sort of talk about shore and how proud we are of all the work we've done. And I will answer any questions that anyone may have about this amazing organization. No questions? Comments?
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. How's it feel to be on this side of the camera?
Well, you know, Peter, I've asked for this for a long time to be on the agenda, so thank you very much. It's okay, but I really do like my my seat in the audience.
Okay.
I think I'll be keeping that for quite a while.
All right. No, I'd obviously like to thank Shore for all the work. I think it's probably true that most folks don't really recognize or understand how many of the things that you mentioned are funded. So obviously we thank you for all the hard work and efforts in supporting the district for the past,
Yeah.
you specifically.
Like I said, and we still have one current fundraiser going right now that it's sort of my last hurrah for Scituate Public Schools. So I'm just going to give one plug for that. It is we're having the art students create a mural in the library, and we're sort of asking for donations to as a capital plan to help seed money, since we did kind of, I guess, didn't really take it down to zero, but we went out with a bang. All of us with graduating seniors this year with the almost $70,000 in grants. So we're definitely looking, if anyone's interested in that, certainly reach out either through our website, or you can reach me at situateshore@gmail.com. So again, and any questions about grants or how the process works too, I'm happy to answer those.
Good. Any comments from the committee? Mr. Hayes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jennifer. I started talking and I realized I was on mute. So
That's okay. I do that all the time.
Yeah, 30 years is a long time. I remember the first Shore dinner, and I want to thank you for all your hard work and dedication. There have been probably literally hundreds of people over the years, and it was originally Scituate High School, but it is now throughout all the schools, and especially in the early years, but continuing until this year. Scituate couldn't operate the way it does without Shore, and it's a vital part of the educational and cultural experience of Scituate, and I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think Shore is definitely part of the fabric of Scituate High School.
Sure
and we hope that it will continue for 30 more years.
You bet.
And Peter, I'd like to just echo what Mike said and thank Jen for all her hard work and all the other members of Shore. I know there are a lot of kids and students throughout the years that have benefited. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
And it's nice to see you.
I'll turn my camera off though for when I ask questions from the other side.
All right.
All right. Peter,
All right,
again, thank you. And I do have one additional ask that Shore be able to present annually their sort of their grants, because I do think it's important for the public to know what the money that they're donating sort of goes to. I think in the end, as with anything, it's just important, for everyone to know. And Shore is very open about it, letting people know. But I think if they had this opportunity every year, it would be great.
I agree. I think it is important for folks to realize the work that you guys do. I will put that in the capable hands of the future chairs, but I don't see if there's any reason not to. And this, I guess, as long as, is it this time of year that you think, is this in line with your grant cycle?
Yeah, probably. This was a bit of an odd year where we only had one grant cycle, just with COVID and a few other things. But in years past, we've done a fall and a spring, but this would be a great time to just talk about what was funded and why it was funded. We're reaching out to the community now at the high school to talk about what they're hoping to see next year. What are their I guess their big asks. Not sure that we can fund another $50,000 for a multimedia center, but you never know. You know, but definitely, I can't wait for you guys to have your first school committee meeting in that new facility. You'll be shocked at the difference.
Well, I hope the audio is good enough.
That's the one thing they're still waiting on is some of the multimedia stuff is on back order. So they're waiting for that to come in, but it's beautiful. And those blinds that you would sit in front of are gone. Those
Great.
disgusting blinds
We'll
are
have
gone.
to coordinate with Seth, our mastermind, to make sure we can get the audio visual working in there. That would make everyone's lives a little bit easier.
Absolutely. And when I come to school committee meetings, I will be sitting on one of those lovely couches to watch it. So thank you again. I truly appreciate it.
Well, and Jen, I want to thank you again for getting this back on the agenda. I mean, for at least 20 or 25 years, this used to be a regular agenda item when Shore made its grants. I don't know how and who dropped the ball, but
I think just it's just a lot of the people that are on Shore, they're very busy and just trying to, and I just think it's, a lot of us don't want to really toot our own horn. We don't look for the pat on the back. That's really not why we do it. But I think it's just important to know, especially with some of these bigger grants that we just had and wanting to continue going forward. So when we get football back, I hope every single one of you will come to the concession stand because I have offered to stay on at least to work the Friday night lights. So we'll see you there.
People realize it's how important it is again, and hopefully result in more donations.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All righty. Moving forward with new business. Sorry to make all these folks that are on this part of the agenda wait. It is now 8:32. Hand it over to Superintendent Burkhead for the Assistant Superintendent of Schools appointment.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. And before I do that, I would like to just kind of comment on the last two presentations because they were extremely powerful. The first one, I want to thank Greg Ranieri for stepping up and preparing that presentation in Lindsay Newton, and a cameo by Mr. Beatty. We had talked, we talk about excellence in education and being the best district in the world, and we want to do so academically. But I think what we know is to be true is the flip side of that coin is the social emotional learning of our students and their mental health. And we wanted to show tonight, and that's why we had two separate presentations, one previous night and one tonight, because they're both equally important to developing the whole child. And so I want to thank the three of you for that presentation. It was very powerful, and also shows people, I think, that not every district collects data on social emotional learning, and we are. So and it was a good depiction of how we use that information to support our students socially and emotionally. So thank you for that. I also want to thank Miss O'Neill and the Shore group for one of the first groups of people I met. They're extremely dedicated parents. Unbelievable what they do for our school community. And if you haven't been down to the harbor, just one example of what they've done this year. It's literally transformed a place that no one wanted to be in. It was old and run down and dated, and now it's a mecca. It's got people in there all the time. It's a place you want to be. So just one example. The cart for the athletic field is another. I mean, I know Ms. O'Neill shared some of those things, but I want to let you know I've been in many districts and not everybody has a group like Shore. And then when you get to know those individuals and they were kind enough to meet with me, all the time and effort and organization that goes into that and the financial bookkeeping they do, it's extremely impressive. So I want to wish Ms. O'Neill and all the other parents that are of senior students that are moving on the very best. And I know we'll see you around. I want to wish Ms. Nelson and her new team the best moving forward, and please let us know how we can support you. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all you've done for the kids of Scituate and for the adults. It's just really good. Next, what I'd like to share is a recommendation for appointment and contract for our new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development. I'm pleased to recommend tonight Heidi Driscoll in that role. Ms. Driscoll currently serves as the Director of Curriculum for Southeastern Regional Vocational Technical School, and she has served as an elementary principal, department chair, and English teacher for the Taunton Public Schools. Ms. Driscoll currently also serves on the Department of Education focus group for the creation of statewide academic excellence roadmap, and she was appointed by the Commissioner of Education to the Board of Accountability and Assistance Advisory Council. She also serves as a visiting lecturer in Education Department at Bridgewater State University. I also teach there, and I will say she is highly what's the word, respected in that domain as well. She was the clear front runner throughout the process, through the screening process, through the feedback forum, through the central office interview, and through final interview with me. I'm really thrilled to have someone of her caliber joining our team as we move forward in our goal from becoming the best district in the world. I think she complements everything we're doing, and I think I read that in a lot of the compliments and feedback from the screening committee, the forum that we had, and the feedback, and also from our central office team. She brings a wealth of experience at all levels. She is highly respected curriculum expert statewide, as noted by all the committees she's on at the state level. And her accomplishments reflect a leader who's able to produce results while building strong relationships. She resides in Raynham and is a mother of 3 children, 4th grader, 6th grader, and 8th grader. And she will be replacing Miss Jen Arnold, who is retiring at the end of the school year, effective July 1, if appointed this evening. A hiring committee composed of administrators, teachers, students, and parents selected Ms. Driscoll and 3 others for a pool of over 30 finalists. 30 candidates, down to 4 finalists. In the second round, the 4 finalists each participated in a virtual forum where they fielded questions and shared their educational experience and philosophies with interested members of the school community, which included faculty, parents, and other stakeholders. Feedback was also provided at that interview process, and in the third and final round, she met with the central office team along with the other candidates and was chosen from that group as well. So I'm grateful to the search committee, the people that were able to show up at the forums and offer feedback. It's valued and appreciated. And I think we've got an excellent candidate, an excellent fit for Scituate here in Ms. Heidi Driscoll. So tonight I recommend to the school committee her appointment and contract.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Driscoll. I want to put you on the spot. Would you like to make a comment? I can. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I just wanted to say this has been such a wonderful showcase of a community tonight. And I really felt like this was a wonderful introduction to all of you here. The process, it was wonderful to meet so many people who were passionate and had such great questions. But this was, I mean, it felt more like a showcase than a school committee meeting. So thank you so much. And I hope to be a part of your team.
Great, thank you. Do you have any comments or questions from the committee? Just for the public's sake, we did hold executive session prior to this meeting to review the contract. And it's at this point in public that we do vote on it. If I don't have any questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the contract for Heidi Driscoll for assistant superintendent.
Mike, did you just have the dates of that contract?
From July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2000 what?
24.
24.
All right, motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brandolini. We will have a roll call vote. Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Gates is a yes. Mr. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
And Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 5-0. Welcome, Ms. Driscoll. Can't wait to greet you, meet you, and see you in the central office.
Congratulations and thank you.
Welcome
Thank you
aboard.
so much.
Thanks for going through the rigorous interview process. We know it's a lot of work and a lot of effort, but thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you. All right, on to the next contract, Director of Special Education, Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. Just for the community to know that, again, to reiterate what Chairman Gates said, we did meet in executive session, and these contracts, because they're central office and by law, need to be approved by the school committee. I shared them in great detail over the executive session, and I'm requesting that we approve, and we're fortunate to have Dr. Bobert, if approved, stay for another 3 years. Been very fortunate to have her coming on in August into a new position and a new team in a very challenging year and a very challenging job to basically perform at such a high level. So my recommendation would be to support the contract of Ms. Bobert from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
Any questions or comments from the committee? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contract for Michelle Bobart as Special Ed Director from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2024.
Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lindblom. We will hold a roll call vote. I'll go first. Gates, yes. Mr. Long.
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
And Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Dr. Bobert, congratulations. We're happy to have you for another 3 years.
Thanks for staying.
Thank you.
I won't put
Thank
you
you.
on the spot. I won't put you on the spot. We're happy to have you. You've done great work, and glad that you're sticking around for another 3 years. Okay, moving forward.
Thank you, Chairman Gates. The Director of Business and Finance, Dr. Bob Dutch, again, shared contract in detail in executive session. I think Bob's body of work has been displayed a lot on Zoom meetings this year. He's a favorite of our prezzies, and more importantly, I think he's been a mentor for me and for a lot of our leaders in our district as a retired superintendent, and a man that's greatly respected in the education world, to come travel from the Cape each day and to come in August and jump on this new ship here and if you don't mind the metaphor, to sail in Scituate with our team. Just been honored to have him. You saw his body of work tonight, that his philosophy is transparency, and that this is the public's money and we need to show them how we spend it, and we need to earn their trust in how we spend the money to do what's best for our students and our community. So Bob plays a huge role in that, and I would recommend we approve Dr. Dutch's contract for 1 year. And just so the community knows, it's not a 3-year contract and a 1-year contract because Dr. Dutch is retired, and for legal reasons, that is the maximum we can give him. So I would like to recommend a 1-year contract for Dr. Dutch, July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Great. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? Again, we did review Dr. Dutch's and the other previously voted on in executive session. If you have any further questions, please ask Superintendent Burkhead. If none, I would entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the contract for Dr. Robert Dutch for Business Director from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022.
You got it. Motion by Mr. Hayes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lindblom. Also have a roll call vote. I will start with Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Gates is a yes. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
And Ms. Lindblom?
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Congratulations, Dr. Dutch. Also, thank you to you for sticking around. We're happy to have you and hoping to see some additional enhancements or whatnot in your presentations.
I think that if anybody voted against that, would certainly be not long before a recall petition was filed, because Bob's our newest and brightest superstar of our school committee meetings,
Yep.
as well as doing a wonderful job.
All right. And the last group of contracts are non-union personnel. Superintendent Burkhead.
Yes, so these are the remainder 27 contracts are non-union members, principals, central office, other non-union memberships, administrative assistants, secretaries. You have a copy of the sheet with their recommended salaries and contracts. I met with each and every one of them at length to discuss these contracts. They all happen to come up at the same time. So my recommendation would be to support the contracts of the non-union members in your packet, which are pretty much all 3-year contracts, but individualized because they are non-union.
Any questions or comments on those?
Pete, I had one question.
Sure.
Bill, I mean, as the Sunday, I didn't see that in my packet.
It's
That list.
there.
It's there now. It's there now.
All right. No, if it's, did it come today?
I think it was there earlier, but I'm not sure.
Right.
We made one adjustment today, so I don't know if we took it down and fixed it. That might have been the price, but I can
If you
certainly
could
find
just
out.
ask him in the morning if she could just send it to me again then, because I didn't see it in my package.
Okay.
I'm sure
I apologize. We'll get that to you.
It is out there. I'm looking at it right now. It is there. I'm not sure when it was there, but it's there.
Yeah.
All right. I recognize that Ms. Lindblom needs to abstain, correct?
Well, I have to say that when you call on me.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry, who made the motion?
Nobody heard anything.
Oh, sorry. I just need a motion on the non-union personnel agreements.
I move the school committee approve the non-union personnel agreements as presented for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Brandolini. This requires a roll call vote. We will go Ms.
Get out there.
Brandolini.
Yes.
Lindblom.
Sorry, Ms. Lindblom.
I abstain.
Mr. Hayes.
Well, I'm going to abstain only for the reason I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure it's
okay.
You send confidence in it, but I'm not comfortable voting on something I haven't seen. So
okay,
I'll abstain just for
Okay.
that reason.
All right. Gates is a yes. Mr. Long?
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini?
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes 3-0, 2 abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the second and final opportunity for public comment. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I will ask you to unmute and identify yourself. Looks like we have a couple. Milena Davidova. I think I got it right finally after a year.
Yes, hi. This is Milena Davidova. I have children at Gates and the high school. So this is a concern that I am directing to Mr. Burkhead, Dr. Dutch, and possibly Mr. Adams as well. It's a concern about digital citizenship in light of our latest incident, specifically taught from a young age. I understand that our STEM teacher is only one for all of the elementary schools, and she only covers 3rd and 4th grade. There's only so much of a teacher. I also understand that during Ron Griffin's first year, there was an approved extra position for STEM teacher for the elementary level. So in light of that, I'd like to know if there's any follow-up, if there's any intention to fulfill that and pursue fulfilling that extra position as a form of preventative care for our students. Thank you.
I'll briefly comment. I believe that was a want, and we weren't able to fill that STEM position as a result of budget difficulties that we encountered. That's what I recall. So we weren't able to fill that position. Other than that, I mean, the budget's been created and approved for the following year. So I don't know off the top of my head if it included an additional STEM position. I'll open up to Superintendent Burgess for a brief comment if he'd like to.
I missed the first part of the question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it, Ms. Davidova?
Sorry. She's her interest was on the elementary STEM position. She's interested. There was mention of one, I think, a year or two ago in the budget to add a second one to the elementary, or an additional one to the elementary school.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think digital citizenship is huge, and I think it needs to be assessed in our curriculum. I think we can do it without adding a new position. It's not in the contract this year. We've already passed the contract, so you know, that's not a possibility for this year. However, I think we can expand how we teach digital citizenship through our you know, through our curriculum coordinators, through our students, our staff and our principals. So I think we don't necessarily need that position to make that work. I've seen it happen in other districts. There are great curriculums out there, and we've got some very creative and smart teachers. So I think we just have to provide the time and the commitment to it. And I do agree that there's probably no better time. So that will be a priority and something we're looking at. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Superintendent Burkhead. Next question is Jennifer DeSabatino, is all I can see.
Yes, thank you. And as I start my comments, I'll always apologize in advance for my son, who will almost certainly make noise. I just wanted to.
Sorry, just your address if you're okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I live at 2 Trudy's Lane in Scituate, and my son is a student in the PLC at Hatherley. So I was very happy to see the conversation around social emotional learning, and particularly around perseverance. It's something that comes up in my classroom every day. Just today I had a student worried about turning in an assignment that wasn't perfect. And I said, well, this isn't a test, and do I expect it to be perfect the first time? And she said, no. And I said, do I let you redo it if you're not happy with the results? She said, yes. I said, do I expect you to make mistakes? And she said, yes. I said, so go ahead and submit it, and then we'll fix what we need to fix. And so I'm really happy to see that. I also have, I just hope that part of this includes an understanding of and education perhaps for the staff on some problems around grind culture and grit, and trying to push particularly students in vulnerable communities to always just keep pushing themselves no matter what, instead of asking for help. And I think that's one of the most important things when you talk about perseverance. It isn't just telling a kid to keep smacking their head against a brick wall. It's having a kid ask for help and understand that whatever they can't do now, they can't do it yet, and that they need to ask for help to do it. So I I have done a little bit of reading around grind culture and grit, which sounds great. You want kids to, grind it out and have grit and do all their work. But sometimes that comes at the cost when you don't understand all of the context of where that student is coming from. There are some really serious problems, can be some really serious problems there. So I would really hope and encourage that the school committee and the administration and Mr. Ranieri, and even hopefully in concert with say Jameli, because you asked me to call Jameli instead of Mr. Adams, working together to talk about how you can really help kids with perseverance and not just tell them to keep trying, because there are some subtleties there and some important distinctions that we really need to pay attention to. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other hands. If that is the case, I will wrap up this final opportunity for public comment and move on. So we have acceptance of minutes for November 2nd and November 16th. Have any discussion? If none, I would entertain a motion.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes for the school committee meeting of November 16th, 2020.
How about November 2nd?
Didn't I say second? I thought I said second, Pete. Did I?
I think you said 16.
Yeah, I think I could only make one for the second because I wasn't there on the 16th. But I mean,
Okay.
I'll be happy
You can
if
make a
someone
motion
else would make a motion for both of them.
We actually have, I think we have three. We have April 26th, I think, is out there as well.
Mhm.
I think there's two for the 16th.
Is that what it is?
Is it two on that one?
I thought we already voted that, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought so too.
No, sorry, that's November. We voted the
November.
April. We voted, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. So we have November 2nd, two for November 16th, and then I believe we have April 26th as well.
Maybe someone else could make that motion.
I move we approve the school committee minutes from November 2nd, 2020.
Motion by Mr. Long, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Lindblom. Roll call vote. Gates, yes. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
I'll abstain.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
401 passes. Now I have November 16th, regular scheduled school committee meeting minutes.
Move to approve the November 16th, 2020 regular scheduled school committee meeting as minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long, is there a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Lindblom. Roll call vote. Mr. Hayes.
Abstain.
Gates is yes. Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
All right, now I need a motion for the November 16th town meeting minutes.
Move to approve the November 16th, 2020 town meeting minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Long. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Ms. Lindblom. Roll call vote. Gates, yes. Hayes.
Abstain.
Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
And Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0, abstention. And finally, we have the April 26th regular scheduled school committee meeting minutes.
Move to approve the April 26th, 2021 school committee minutes.
26.
6th, yes.
Second.
Getting tired.
What?
Getting tired.
I know, me too. Motion by Mr. Hayes, a second by Mr. Long. Roll call vote, Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
Ms. Lindblom.
Yes.
Gates is yes. Mr. Long
Yes.
and Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Correspondence. Any correspondence? I did not receive anything direct.
Nothing direct.
No correspondence. We get Dr. Dutch again.
I
For warrants.
apologize for that.
We're sorry to keep. We got you done early, and then we had to hold you till later. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So there are two warrants. The first one is S210429, a total of $281,155.79, signed by committee member Lindblom. One revolving account, significant disbursement, kindergarten refunds in the amount of $48,050. We did take deposits from everyone who registered. So now that we have voted to, now that the town has approved the budget and we have free kindergarten, we're returning those. So we have returned those deposits. Significant items in the local budget: private school tuition, $116,079. Cardinal Cushing, the Clark School, Grove School, Landmark, and Justice. And then collaborative tuition, $50,277.99 to the Pilgrim Collaborative and the South Shore Educational Collaborative. Those were the only significant items over $10,000. The next warrant, S210506, $273,276.02. Again, from revolving and grants, we expended $46,784 from the IDEA grant, again, for students in out-of-district programs, specifically Marshfield and the Pilgrim Collaborative. Remodeling the Metco room, so there was a purchase there from the Metco grant. And then significant items in our local budget, again, private school tuition, $109,489.62. The collaborative, $24,309.53. Our utilities, gas in particular, $44,075.38. And that was those are the only items over $10,000. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Nope. That was great.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions? You satisfied I need those reading of the warrants. All right. Any other business that anyone would like to discuss? All right. Future agenda items. Our next meeting is May 24th. That's typically when we do have a school committee reorganization. So start thinking about that. If anyone would like to lobby for a particular position. And we will be reviewing, I think, and voting the second page of the school calendar, as well as second readings on policies, I believe. If nothing else, remind everyone we will be adjourning into executive session and we will not be returning to regular session. And if we have nothing,
Mr. Long, I think you're going to have to take over.
sorry, did you lose me? Did I lose you?
Yep.
Sorry. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session for reason number 2 with the intention not to return to regular session?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hayes, there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Roll call vote. Ms. Brandolini?
Yes.
Ms. Limblom?
Yes.
Gates is yes. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
And Mr. Long?
Yes.
Excellent. So at 9:05, we were adjourning into executive session. We'll ask all those participants to leave this meeting as we will not be returning to public session.